Department of Education aims to provide accessible, quality, and relevant basic education to every Filipino nationwide. To realize this vision, the DepEd launched Sulong Edukalidad, a campaign to improve the basic education system of the country by focusing on 4 priority areas: K-12 curriculum review and update, improvement of the learning environment, teacher upskilling and reskilling, and engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration. As a contribution to the teacher upskilling and reskilling pillar, and in preparation for the next cycle of the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, the department presents you with a professional development program on Assessment and Emerging Literacies with focus on PISA. The Assessment PD program is a professional development program that aims to improve teachers' assessment literacy and content knowledge in order to develop reading, math, and science literacy of junior high school students. The program is jointly developed and delivered by DepEd's Office of the Secretary, Bureau of Education Assessment, Bureau of Learning Delivery, and the National Educators Academy of the Philippines accredited learning service providers, namely the Assessment Curriculum and Technology Research Center, Front Learners Incorporated, and Center for Educational Measurement. They are also joined by distinguished assessment experts and practitioners from the academe. The Assessment PD program brings together grade 8 and 9 English, Science, and Mathematics teachers in public junior high schools nationwide. Running from October 2021 to April 2022, the Assessment PD program has 5 component courses. The first course, on enhancement of teachers' assessment competencies, introduces teachers to assessment competencies based on national and international standards. Assessment of Learning in DepEd intends to help teachers familiarize themselves on DepEd policies, standards, and programs pertaining to classroom, national, and international assessments. The third course is on the Philippine K-12 curriculum and the ILSA, which provides participants an opportunity to compare local and international fluency in reading, math, and science in order to understand emerging directions in teaching and assessment. Adapting assessment principles and practices to the emerging literacies provides participants with accessible tools, learning resources, and instructional strategies that will help them address literacy gaps identified by the PISA 2018 results. Lastly, the course on monitored application of assessment practice in the classroom setting is an avenue for synthesis and integration of learning through the practical demonstration of assessment competencies, principles, methods, and strategies. Filipino learners need to be equipped to face the increasingly complex challenges faced by the world today. Their preparation starts in the classroom, so we need to ensure that our teachers are given the tools and knowledge that they need to unlock their students' full potential. The Assessment PD is one step forward to this goal.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
sa pagpunlan ng buong bayan. Hiling namin ang grasya mo upang kami mapagmahal. Dapat na tagapagpangalaga ng kalikasan. Maluwalhati ka, Panginoon. Dakila sa lahat, O Panginoon. Napakabuti mo, kailan may hindi ka nagbabago, Panginoon.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Ya Allah, Kati ya Allah, papalad na miska ya Allah ya Rahman ya Rahim. Sa mga tawag ya Allah ya sikwagman ka ya Allah ya Rahman ya Rahim. Ya Allah bungi ngabi ya Allah sama pia pamikiran ya Allah. Amo sarami ya Allah siku o kawapi siku kapugingid ya Allah pakangiginawa ya kami kay ya Allah papamagugupa kami kay Allah. Sukalangulawan o Pilipino ya Allah sisagi nga Pilipinas ya Allah. Napakanudurugungan kay Allah sa mga mapia pamikiran ya Allah siku kapugingid ya Allah. Ya Allah, naargang ka kami, Ya Allah, Rahman, Ya Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin.
Maluwalhati ka, Panginoon. Dakila sa lahat, O Panginoon. Napakabuti mo, kailan may hindi ka nagbabago, Panginoon.
Good morning, everyone. How are you today? It's a sunny day here in Manila. Welcome to our synchronous session for the Professional Development Program on Assessment and Emerging Literacies with focus on PISA, or shortly, an Assessment PD program. Today's session will cover Module 1C-Reading, which focuses on feedback to improve learning. Before we proceed with the program, we would like to remind our English teachers that the recorded lecture for today will be available through our YouTube channel, and participants are encouraged to subscribe to www.youtube.com/c/assessmentpd program. We will now proceed to the introduction of our resource persons today. Our first speaker is the ex-officio president of Educational Measurement and Evaluation Association. He is also a consultant to various institutions in the Philippines, conducting teacher training seminars and workshops on educational assessment. Let us all welcome Dr. Carlo Magno. Good morning, Dr. Magno.
Okay, good morning.
All right. So next, our second speaker is an assessment reform advocate for growth mindset and a curriculum consultant who helps schools and organizations to align their instruction and assessment processes with their mission. She also champions for education for sustainable development and whole school well-being. She's a member of the International Language Testing Association and an individual affiliate of the Association of Language Testers in Europe. Teachers, let us please welcome Dr. Sterling Plata. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, so also joining us this morning are some amazing English teachers who will be actively participating in today's session. Hello, good morning, teachers.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are so excited to hear from you. So, right before we start the session, we would like to remind our live audience to raise their thoughts and insights and questions through our YouTube live chat down below. Our resource persons will answer them after the discussion proper. So we will now proceed with the first presentation. Dr. Magno, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning again. Okay, good morning, everybody. And we will be starting with our first session on how to provide effective feedback and learner's mindset. I'll be starting the session, and the outcome for this particular session today is for faculty members who uses feedback to improve on students' performance, and how we use appropriate feedback to help students attain the learning targets, and how we develop a growth mindset. Okay, so to begin our session, let's start with a preliminary exercise with the participation of our teachers here. So this is just a true or false task. So I will be reading the statement, and the teachers will be the one to answer true or false, and then we'll probe further into their answers. All right, let's call on the first teacher in our sequence. Okay, so we have teacher Lalaine. Okay, teacher Lalaine, are you ready?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
All right. Good morning, teacher Lalaine. So number one, formative assessment needs to be checked in modules answered by the learners at home. Okay, what's
sir.
your
For me,
answer?
sir, the answer is true.
Okay. Why is your answer true?
It's to formative assessment needs to be checked. It's for us to know if the student learned from those formative assessment.
Okay, so
Though
given
some of
that,
the formative assessment are being checked, but they are not recorded.
okay, so we record the formative assessment so that we can track on students' progress. All right, teacher Lalaine, given now that we are implementing remote learning, can you tell me how do you check formative assessment for both online and offline modalities?
Since we are actually in our school, we are actually adapting the modular distance learning, wherein the students needs to answer the modules at home, and then they will return the answer sheets to the teachers, and we will be the one who will check it.
Okay.
We don't have the chance to check it online since they don't have the means for.
Okay, so it's by schedule, and then they submit
Yes,
to you the work. Okay, and
yes,
then
sir.
you return it again after you have checked the work.
Yes, with the feedback.
Okay, provided with the feedback. Okay, that's interesting. And number two, teacher Lalaine, summative assessment in modules is monitored by the adults at home. So when I say here monitor by adults, it means to say that our home learning partners, such as the parents, such as siblings or other relatives in the home-based learning environment, reminds the learner to answer these assessment tasks. They ensure that the learners answer them completely and submits them on time, okay, to the teacher. This is what I mean here when I say monitor. Okay, what's your answer?
I think this is true, sir.
Okay, why is it important to monitor the summative assessment conducted at home?
As for me, sir, since they are the one who are, who are with the students most of the time, since they are answering the modules at home, they need to check as parents or as the one who assists the students if they are answering the modules completely or the activities completely and submit them on time.
Okay,
I think they have to recheck it before submitting.
Okay, so more specifically for summative assessment, why do we have to ensure that the parents monitor that the summative assessments are submitted to the teacher?
It's because it is recorded and graded, sir.
Yes, okay, so that's an important aspect here, that the summative assessments are actually graded. Now,
Yes,
Teacher Lelaine, there are two concepts that are introduced here in items 1 and 2. You have formative assessment and you have summative assessment. So, Teacher Lelaine, can you briefly tell us what is the difference between formative and summative assessment?
Okay, sir. To the best of my knowledge, the difference between formative and summative assessment, the former is being conducted during the progress of the lesson.
Right.
And summative assessment, on the other hand, is being conducted after a specific lesson is finished.
Right. All right. Yes. So while the lesson is progressing, okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
what do you conduct, formative or summative?
The formative
The
assessment,
formative assessment. And after a series of formative assessment towards the end of the lesson, you now provide the
summative assessment.
summative assessment. So
Assessment. Yes, sir.
one last question before I let you go. Teacher Lelaine, why is it important that we need to give summative formative assessment first before our students answer the summative?
Okay, sir. Formative assessment uh, give ideas to the teachers on where the students are coming from. Where are they? What is their CPD or their zone of proximal development, so that the teachers would know how to design or what to design in regards to the summative assessment. I think the formative assessment will help them. What kind of a summative assessment are they going to give to their student?
All right. This is quite interesting because generally the formative assessment is given in order to prepare our students for the summative. If the students are progressing, you're able to determine that through your formative assessment. And if they are already ready to take the summative.
The summative.
Okay, and then what needs to be remembered here is that there should be some parallelism between what you give in the formative and the summative assessment because they're both anchored on the same learning competency. Okay, thank you, Teacher Lelaine. The next one is Teacher Vanessa. Are you ready, Teacher Vanessa?
Good morning.
Okay, so Teacher Vanessa, number 3, the result of the summative assessment in modules is just for the learners to keep for their own record.
Sir, for me, the answer is false because we need to provide constructive feedback in order for the student to know if they're doing right or wrong. So we need to provide uh, motivation and also for them to give strategies that improve their learning.
Teacher Vanessa, take note that in number 3, it's a summative assessment. The summative assessment is already towards the end of the lesson. So there's about minimal reteaching that needs to be done supposedly here. And ideally, towards the end of the lesson, the student should have mastered because you should have seen that from the formative assessment. Okay, look at this one. The results of the summative assessment is just for the learners to keep for their own record. Is this true or false, Teacher Vanessa? They just keep it for themselves, for their own record.
Yes, sir. I think the answer is true. Yes.
Okay, take note, Teacher Vanessa. It's just for their own record. A while ago, Teacher Lalaine said that there's a difference between formative and summative. The ones that you record only is the formative, but the ones that you record and grade is the summative. Okay, look at the statement again. The results of the summative assessment in modules is just for the teachers to keep for their own record. There's no grading involved when you say only record. So is this true or false, Teacher Vanessa?
Sir, I think it is false.
Yes, it is false. So what made this statement false?
Some it is not recorded for their own or to keep for their own record because we need feedback.
Yeah, I agree that feedback is needed for summative assessment in some forms, but feedback is heavier and more during the formative assessment. Now, however, what made this statement false? Teacher Vanessa, you are muted.
I think the word is just for the learners to keep for their own record.
Yeah, because what else do we do? And where else do we use the results of the summative assessment aside from recording?
For feedback, sir.
I think Teacher Lalaine mentioned where else do we use the summative assessment for. Let's go back to Teacher Lalaine. So Teacher Lalaine, you mentioned a while ago that formative assessment is just used for recording. What else do we use the summative assessment for aside from recording it, Teacher Lalaine?
It is being graded, sir.
It is being graded. And let me repeat, Teacher Vanessa, that the ones that require more feedback would be the formative assessment. By the time that you give your summative assessment, it's already towards the end of the lesson, and there's now minimal reteaching that needs to be done after. But some forms of feedback is still given, but primarily the feedback is given during the formative assessment. That's why this is false. Okay, Teacher Vanessa, number 4, formative assessment results online is collected by the teacher for grading. What's your answer here, Teacher Vanessa? True or false?
The answer is maybe true or false because the formative assessment, it depends kung i-record ba ni teacher or magiging siya ng feedback.
Yeah, Teacher Vanessa, we didn't say record here. Look at the last statement. Formative assessment results online is collected by the teacher for grading. True or false?
True, sir. The answer is true.
Grading, Teacher Vanessa, formative assessment. Do we grade formative assessment, Teacher Vanessa?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, for a while, Teacher Vanessa. Teacher Lalaine, can you please give the difference again between the formative and the summative?
Okay, formative assessment is only recorded, checked and recorded. On the other hand, summative assessment is checked, recorded, and graded.
And graded. So when you say, Teacher Vanessa, thank you very much, Teacher Lalaine. So Teacher Vanessa, when you say recorded, you just put it in a tabular format. You look at the sequence from one draft to another. You record the exercises. But when you say graded, okay, it is computed. It is part of the computation until you arrive at the final grade at the end of the quarter. That's what we mean when we say graded, Teacher Vanessa. Okay? So, do you include the result of the formative assessment, Teacher Vanessa, when you compute for the quarterly grade? Teacher Vanessa?
No, sir.
No. That's why the statement, number 4, is true or false?
False.
Yes. Okay. What made again, Teacher Vanessa, the statement false?
Okay, because formative assessment is for ongoing process or it is not graded.
All right.
And the summative assessment is for the end of the quarter and it is graded po.
All right. So, Teacher Vanessa, can you tell me what is the difference when we say recorded and when you say assessment is graded? What is the difference between recorded and graded, Teacher Vanessa?
Okay, so when we say recorded po kasi, ito po yung binibigay natin sa student to know if it's natututo ba siya or not. And then, it is parang, ito po yung pinaka-final. Ito po yung, and pag hindi po recorded, ito po yung makakapag-provide sa student ng feedback.
Teacher Vanessa, we need to distinguish between graded and recorded. Can you tell me what's the difference again between graded and recorded? Teacher Vanessa, your audio is muted.
Okay, when we say recorded po, it doesn't mean na, sorry. Okay, when we no, sorry.
Yes, we can hear you, Teacher Vanessa.
Okay. When we say recorded, it doesn't mean that it is graded. Okay. Ni-record mo lang siya just to provide feedback, but it does na papakita dun sa mga bata. Not.
Okay. We could not hear Teacher Vanessa, but let me just give some corrections here. Teacher Vanessa, so when it's recorded, of course, your learners also needs to see the record and the results of the formative assessment. And actually, in a home-based learning environment, the students are actually the ones recording the results of their formative assessment. So let me reiterate again that when we say graded, it is included in the computation of the quarterly grade that you give for every quarter at the end of each quarter. All right. Teacher Vanessa, can you still hear us? Okay, I think there's now a problem with Teacher Vanessa's connection. All right, the next one. So we have Sir Neil John. Okay, you ready, Sir Neil John?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Magno.
All right. So I'd like you to consider the explanations provided by the first two volunteers for the succeeded items in order to answer the next set of items. So number 5, assessment is conducted at the middle of the lesson's presentation. True or false? Teacher Neil John.
For me, sir, this is true. Though I have to make it clear that it would depend also on what type of assessment we are conducting. Specifically, we are talking about here, I think, the formative type of assessment, which is conducted during the lesson presentation. And that is very important, sir, for me, because this will give the teacher, or this will guide the teacher as to where to start, where to go during the lesson presentation.
Okay, what you have explained is accurate, that assessment is conducted at the middle of instruction, and the form of assessment that we provide is actually formative. Okay, so formative assessment is ongoing while instruction is taking place. Next question for you, Sir Neil John, is that will you give me an example on how assessment can be conducted while instruction is ongoing? Give an example.
Okay, sir. For example, I am teaching a particular subject, our topic, for example, which is about verbs. So I could ask the students if they know or they can give me examples of the verb. And my purpose there would be to see if they know, they have the partial concept of what a verb is. And then there I will start my discussion based on their answers. All right, so at the middle of the lesson, you can actually stop at certain points of your lesson and ask questions to your students just to check if they can understand, right? That's what you mean. Okay. Middle of the lesson.
The example that you have provided applies for a face-to-face type of instruction. All right, now will you give an example how this happens in a remote type of learning when your students are going through a printed module?
Okay, in a printed module, sir, what I usually do, this is already applied. I use GC Messenger, Facebook Messenger, or call or text. What I
Or online?
basically, this is, yes, sir. And this is what I do for example, we provide them the modules. Then at a particular time frame, I am going to call one student or one by one, call them one by one to assess and to see if they have learned something from their module. And if not, I can give them some guide as to how to do particular tasks and things or topics in the module po.
Okay, Sir Neil John, let me make it a little bit more challenging for you. Let's take out the online modality and it's just purely print, okay? And you are not present without any device. Okay, how do you do assessment purely when the students are independently going through the lesson? So assessment is ongoing while the students are going through the module. How does that happen?
I think actually, sir, we have those kind of cases here in our school because we have students who are in a
Okay,
remote
give me the
area wherein there's
strategy.
no,
How
yes,
does that happen?
um, but
Assessment is ongoing while teaching.
in our case, sir, we do not really have that kind of activity wherein in the middle of the time that they answer their modules because there is no way how, to contact them. So
Hmm.
we are still formulating ways as to how to do that, sir.
Okay.
That is reality.
Okay, let me give you a particular strategy. It will depend on how you structure the format of your module. For example, that you are providing a short story and the students will read the short story. You can put some prompts or questions
Mm.
in between paragraphs of your short story and then the students answer to check what they think about the previous part of the story that they have read. So this is a way of think aloud where the students actually answer these prompts at the middle of the story. So this is one way of assessing while instruction is ongoing, or divide your learning competency into specific segments and put in or insert some assessment in between. Okay, so for example, you're teaching subject verb agreement. You cut it down into the different rules. And then after finishing to teach each rule, there's a succeeding exercise for that one. Then introduce again the next SB rule, another exercise. Introduce the next SB rule, another exercise. In that way, even without the teacher, okay, and when the students are going through the printed module online, you can do the assessment while instruction is ongoing. All
Parang
right.
yung ano sir, parang directed reading thinking activity, parang ganon na kinakat
Yep,
yung ano. Mm.
exactly. Okay.
But sir, I would just like to ask, kasi what I'm basing my answer based on the real scenario
Mm.
wherein we just actually have the module prepared already. Therefore, if we are going to provide them additional, for example, the last learning activity sheets, maybe that's the time we can insert these things, no?
Mhm.
Kasi yung module is already ano,
Fixed. All
naka-con.
right. Yeah.
Opo.
So for the succeeding quarters, when you go through the contextualization and review of your modules again, you can structure it that way so that assessment is made possible while you're doing your instruction. All right. Number 6, Sir Neil John. Learners need to attend school when conducting performance-based tasks. What is your answer?
Okay, yes, sir. This is very relevant for today
Mhm.
because it doesn't mean that because they cannot attend to school, they cannot perform tasks. No, so there are a number of ways which they can do with the use of technology. For example, we have cell
Yep.
phone. We can do the video. We can record performance in MAPE and even in English through oral or speech presentations.
Mhm.
So we can do those things. So I would answer here false.
Yes, okay. They do not need to attend school when conducting performance-based tasks. Or sometimes the products that they have created in English, such as the essays, their compositions, technical writing, they can send that to the teacher. If this is going to be online, it's easy to send that. They can just upload it, okay, in your learning management system. Or if they don't have any device, they can just submit and send to you the paper where the document where they have written their
Yes, sir.
answers. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Neil John. What did you realize here in items 5 and 6?
Actually, one of the things that I see is that there could, thank you for the idea, sir, for giving me the idea that there could be a number of ways that I can do in order for me to monitor, to continuously monitor the performances of our students through online or offline modalities, printed or non-print. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. You're implementing partial face-to-face already in your school?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. All right. Okay. So thank you, Sir Neil John. Next is Miss Divelin, Teacher Divelin. You ready?
Good morning. Yes, sir. Good
Okay.
morning.
Okay. Item number 7, summative assessment includes the feedback of the parents on a project before submitting to the teacher. So when I say a project, let's say the students will write a technical report about a particular topic. Let's say, for example, proper wearing of face mask. Okay. So when you say feedback coming from the parents, okay, they ensure that it is done. They provide some feedback in terms of the content and how the essay is written before the learner submits that to you. What's your answer?
I think it's true.
Right. So
For since it is a summative assessment, we do I'm actually thinking of a modular setting since that is the modality that we are using right now. So on a summative assessment, we have the evidence right in front of us. Say, for example, that's an essay. So we do read the content of the essay submitted by the students. Yet it may be helpful that the teacher could solicit feedback from the parents who
but
are
it's the parents providing feedback to the learner, not to the teacher. So why is it important that the parents provide feedback to the learner about the work?
so that they'd be able to be guided on the procedures as well on how if the sample scenario is wearing face mask, then the parent or that someone with the student would be able to guide the students in doing and practicing the lesson.
Okay, yeah. Your answer is actually accurate here because the purpose here of giving the feedback to the learner is to guide the learner for the task. Okay. Now, this is now a parent in a home-based learning environment giving the feedback, and that's true that the feedback would guide the learner. Now, where will the parents' feedback, okay, come from? What is the basis in terms of the content of the parents' feedback? Okay, what would help the parent to give the feedback?
I think it would depend if the teacher has communication with the parent. Say, for example, at the start of the school year, the parents were oriented by the teacher on what to do. I think on that case, this statement would be true, but if not, I think it's false.
Okay, let's put this in a concrete scenario. Let's say that the project is a written essay and the instructions are found where? Before the students write the essay, of course, the instructions in the home-based learning environment, Teacher Divelin, are found where?
It is in the module.
Right. It is in the module. And of course, when you put the instructions in the module, okay, so there's also a space there where they will write the essay. Part of that instruction is something to help guide the learners and the parents. What would be that part of the instruction? It's a performance-based task, the essay. Okay.
Part of the instruction could be they can ask or seek help from parents.
Now,
adults.
Yeah. So what we're actually looking for here would be part of that instruction that would help the parents know what feedback to give. Okay. So generally, when the parents would give feedback, what would be the basis of their feedback? How would the parents know that they need to feedback on grammar? How would the parents know that they need to feedback on the organization of the ideas? How would the parent know that they need to give feedback in terms of the quality of the content?
Yeah.
How would
Okay,
the
on
parents
that
know?
case, right. So I believe can I on this statement. So on the given scenario that you have given, sir, I believe the number 7 or statement number 7 will make it false.
We're not into that one anymore because the answer here is true. Okay.
Okay.
Teacher Divelin, let's
I
say
just
you will
changed.
be the one. Okay, let me take out the parents in the
Okay.
scenario. Imagine yourself. Of course, you give feedback, right? How will you know that the feedback that you need to provide would be on the grammar? How will you know that the feedback that you need to provide is on the organization of the ideas? How will you know that the feedback that you need to give would be on the content, quality of the content? What do you call those three things that I have mentioned, Teacher Divelin? Okay, let me help you, Teacher Divelin. It starts with letter C and it's found in a letter R. Okay. Teacher Neil John. Okay, Teacher Vanessa. Okay, you can unmute and then you can tell me what do you call those three things, Teacher Vanessa?
It is criteria or
Yes, those are actually called a criteria. And Teacher Vanessa, where do you find those set of criteria? In a letter R. What do you call the letter R, Teacher Vanessa?
Oh, I see.
Come again? In a rubric. Okay, thank you very much for your help, Teacher Vanessa. Okay, let's go back to you, Teacher Divelin. So, Teacher Divelin, in those instructions that you put in your module, okay, do you put the rubric?
Yes, sir.
Yes, of course, you put the rubric, and that's what I was asking for. Okay, now,
Okay.
what would guide the parents on providing feedback now?
Okay, it's the rubrics then. It should be detailed. So the rubric should include the details on what kind of feedback do the parents have to give
Right.
to students.
Right, Teacher Divelin. Okay, Teacher
That's
Divelin.
fine.
So it means to say that when the learners accomplish that particular task, the parents looks at the module, takes a look at the criteria, so that it's the one that would guide them on the content
Yeah.
of the feedback. All right. Teacher Divelin, number 8, summative assessment is limited to paper and pen assessment. So when I say paper and pen, it's the ones with right and wrong answers, like your multiple choice, true or false,
Yeah.
identification, fill in the blanks.
That is false.
Okay, why?
Because summative assessment is not limited to pen and paper or paper and pen assessment. We can give different or various activities depending on the students' levels, provided that there is a rubric or criteria that is included in
Okay, what
the
form
instruction.
of assessment is the rubric used for?
Both in, I think it can be used both in formative and in summative
Yes, it can
assessment.
be used for both formative and summative. Formative and summative are your approaches. Forms would be your paper and pen or the written work. So where do you use the rubric for? What form of assessment? You have two forms of assessment according to DepEd Order number 8 and the interim guidelines for grading. One would be the written, the other one would be what?
That's formal assessment.
It starts with letter P. Teacher Divlin. 2 words. Okay, Teacher Vanessa, what form of assessment do we use the rubric for? Yes, very good, Teacher Vanessa. It's a performance-based assessment. Okay, so Teacher Divlin, what form of assessment do you use the rubric for?
Performance-based.
Okay. And Teacher Vanessa, do you use the rubric for a written work or for a paper and pen type of assessment like multiple choice and matching type?
Actually, both, sir.
Teacher Divlin,
Both po.
you can use it for multiple choice, the
Oh
rubric?
no, the performance only.
Only for performance-based tasks. All right. Teacher Divlin, so what have you realized in our discussion?
That assessment is not limited to pen and paper. If you are going to give assessment that is not pen and paper, you have to include a performance-based. If it is a performance-based activity or assessment, you have to include rubrics.
Okay. Of course. Okay, so Teacher Divlin, we'll be calling you again later. And for the meantime, please take your breakfast so that you'll be energized. Okay, mentally, Teacher Divlin. Okay, next one is Teacher Mary Joy. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. Good morning po.
All right, Teacher Mary Joy. Item number 9. Online drills and exercises are parts of formative assessment. What's your answer, Teacher Divlin?
Sir, for me, that is true. Because in formative assessment, we are trying to, or we are assessing our students so we can adjust the teaching methods or our teaching practices, sir.
Yes. Okay, so look at the word drills, exercises. Okay. What form of noun are they in? Drills with S, exercises with S.
Plural, both
Plural.
plural
So
forms, sir.
why did I intentionally make this one plural?
Because in formative assessment, sir, we do not give only one
Right.
activity.
Yes.
We
Why
give
several?
as much activities as we can until they are ready to take the summative assessment.
Okay, exactly. But why should there be several drills and exercises? Why should there be several formative assessment? What is the use of that? How does that help the learner in terms of the development of their performance? Can you explain?
I think, sir, it would depend their understanding on the lesson, because when we give drills and exercises, sir, we follow the hierarchy of thinking, something like that, sir. Wherein we start with the basic exercises until the most complex, until they are ready to take, or they are ready to take the summative test, sir.
Okay, so meaning to say, if you provide several forms and drills of exercises, it practices the learner. The more they do it, the faster, okay, they will be able to do it. Okay, the more that they practice, the more that they will master the task, because there are several opportunities that they are doing it. Okay, that's why by the time that you give your summative, they are now ready. Okay, so last item, Teacher Mary Joy, for you, number 10, assessment is done before presenting the lesson. True or false?
True, sir. Because we have pre-tests wherein we assess the prior knowledge of our learners, so we know how to enter into their level of understanding.
Okay, so how do you enter into their level of understanding?
So we give, of course, we give pre-assessment, sir.
Okay.
And then if we think that they are not yet ready for our new lesson, I think we can give supplementary lessons or exercises to the previous one, or to the prerequisite lesson to the new one, sir.
Okay. Yes, that is the use of assessment before instruction so that you can supplement those skills that the learners still do not know. All right, last question for you, Teacher Mary Joy. Why do you think that we began with this set of exercises before the presentation of the content for this session?
Sir, it is for us, aside from setting the mood of the class or the group, sir, it is also to assess whether we are ready to take the new lesson or not.
Okay. Do we have a new lesson, Teacher Mary Joy?
Or are we going to progress? Are we going to proceed? Or are we going to do more activities on assessment?
Okay, so are we going to proceed or not?
Yes, sir.
All
I
right.
think that's the purpose of pre-assessments or pre-tests.
All right. Let me go back to Teacher Vanessa. Okay, so Teacher Vanessa, why do you think that we began with this particular exercise of going through statements of true or false about concepts on assessment before we actually start with the presentation? Yes, Teacher Vanessa. Yes, Teacher Vanessa. Oh, there's a problem with her video. Let me just call Teacher Divelin. Hello, Teacher Divelin. Teacher Divelin. Okay,
I'm
Sir
sorry,
Neil.
that was muted.
Teacher Divelin.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the purpose? Why do we have this exercise preliminarily before the presentation of the
For
session?
us to be able to know where the students are. And from there, we'd be able to determine how to proceed with the next lesson.
Okay. All right. Yes. Interesting. Okay. For the next one, Teacher Maribel, okay, please get ready for the next conversation that we're going to have with you together with Teacher Lalaine and Sir Niljan. All right. Actually, when we start to provide feedback among our learners, like what Teacher Lalaine has mentioned a while ago, this is actually done while the students are actually going through formative assessment and progressing towards the lesson. And this is largely explained in the theory of zone of proximal development by Lev Vygotsky. In the theory of zone of proximal development, initially at the beginning, our learners have an actual potential for their development. And that actual development is what they are in at the present time. What we want for our learners is to reach the learning competency, and that is their potential stage of their development. So our goal now, given this particular framework, is to bridge the learners from their actual stage of development going towards their potential stage of development. In order to close that gap, the learner needs to interact and socialize with the learning material, such as your module. The learner needs to socialize and interact with the teacher, or the learner may interact and socialize with another person in their environment, such as their peers and such as your home learning partners, in order to bridge that gap. And part of that interaction is the provision of feedback. When you provide feedback in terms of their performance, they will now have an opportunity to look at their particular strengths and weaknesses, and improvements are actually made in terms of their work. And when you give several opportunities for the learners to revise, redo their work, then that's a time that they reach their potential stage of development. And what we are emphasizing here is that when assessment is ongoing, instruction is also ongoing. So I think this is the discussion that we had with Teacher Niljan a while ago, that instruction and assessment are closely intertwined because they are integrated together. So it means to say that there's no longer a separation between instruction and assessment, because it is possible that assessment is ongoing while instruction is ongoing, or even assessment is used as a form of instruction, especially if this is formative. And like what we have emphasized a while ago, Okay, assessment can be conducted before instruction, during instruction, and after instruction. So when assessment is conducted before instruction, okay, generally we ask ourselves the question, what instructions will be relevant for our learners? Because at the beginning, like what you have mentioned a while ago, we are able to determine particular strengths and weaknesses of the learners. And if we are able to determine that there are still some areas that the learners do not know, then we provide supplement for those areas that they still do not know. While instruction is ongoing, we stop at certain points in time and check whether our learners are progressing towards the learning competency. So the question that we ask here is that what support can we still further provide to the learners? That's why the assessment and instruction is an iteration process during instruction where you assess, you teach, you assess again to determine if the learners have progressed, and then you provide some reteaching in order to address whatever you have found out in your previous assessment, and that is formative. And then when the learners are ready towards the end, then you now give your summative assessment. Now, here are examples of strategies on how you intertwine together assessment and instruction. So when you assess before and during instruction, so you can actually read the answers of your students while your class is ongoing. Okay, and then as you read their preliminary answer at the beginning of your session, you can draw out the expected answers from their work. Then you can ask a volunteer to give the expected answer while class is ongoing, and then draw out the accurate concepts from that answer from the volunteer. Or you can ask a volunteer to show their strategy on how they obtained their answer. So it means to say that the concepts that you will be teaching them is derived from the ideas and answers of the learners. Then you become learner-centered. Another strategy would be you can flash on the screen sample works of the student, point out those areas that needs to be corrected, and then draw out the concepts and the ideas from the actual work that you are flashing on the screen. And then from that, you can further clarify that this is the criteria that we are looking for, and this part of the answer matches the criteria. This part of the answer does not match the criteria. In that way, your students will have better understanding of what the criteria means. Then, as you go along and look at the work of the student, provide some instructional correctives. Show a way on how the work can be revised through modeling. Okay, show the good points and show what needs to be improved in the work. For example, you want to ask your students, you ask your learners to write a persuasive essay. So at the beginning of your session, you can immediately ask them, okay, I want you to write a persuasive essay. And then flash the work, okay, on the screen, point out which parts of the work contains the persuasion, okay? And then after you point out those parts of the essay that contains the persuasion, tell them that these statements are actually persuading, okay? And that's where you draw up the concept of a persuasion. And then from the work, okay, little by little, connect it to the criteria that you have. And then if there are some parts that need to be improved, provide correctives from that. In that way, you are teaching based on sample works of your student. At the same time, you are already assessing the work that they have done. So you see how they are intertwined. You are teaching already at the same time you have conducted your assessment. So this is what we mean when you say instruction is closely integrated with assessment. And let's look at more on how you provide strategies on helping your students improve. So we'll watch a video and get ready for the next set of teachers. Okay, Teacher Maribel, are you ready? Teacher Maribel, can you say hi? Teacher Maribel? Uh-oh. Are you here, Teacher Maribel?
Yes, sir.
Oh, we cannot hear Teacher Maribel.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now. So we will be playing a video afterwards. We'll have questions for you. Teacher Lalaine?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you'll be included in the conversation together with Teacher Maribel and Teacher Neil John. Ready? After the video. Okay, so watch the video and then we'll have some conversation about the video after. Okay, let's play the video now.
Gwaping si Nero ah.
You and I must make our bed. We must bring salvation back. Where there is love, I'll be there. And oh, I'll be there to comfort you. Build my world of dreams around you.
We've got to fix that. If we turn, somebody's got to fix it.
I'll be there with love so strong. I'll be your strength. I'll give holding on. I'll be there. You know I'll be there. Yeah, 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 yeah. Just call my name. I'll be there. Just call my name.
Kaya pa yan, kaya pa yan. Mali niyo humabol. Basta hanggat may music, pwede pa umikot ang coaches.
Ano sabi ko?
Thank you po.
Ano sabi ko?
Team Leia.
Hi, ano pangalan mo?
Ako po si Nero R. Bautista po.
Hi Nero, hindi ako umikot is because nga na I felt you were very shaky at certain points, right? Yung mga vibrato na end. Una, akala ko nerves, but to me sometimes it's also about control as well. The way you navigated the song lang, it just didn't connect with me.
Alam mo yung vibrato, anak? Yun yung nginig, di ba? Mas maganda sana kung hindi ganun kadami yung vibrato. I'm sure with Coach Leia, you're in very good hands. Kasi alam ko may gagawin siyang, pati ikaw siguro, hindi mo alam kaya mong gawin. Congratulations.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
Thank you for joining
Okay.
the voice.
Heto na. Freebie na to. Before actual coaching sessions begin. Wait, lalapitan muna kita.
Libreng lesson mula kay Coach Leia.
So, I just want to experiment and see if and the band can help me out. Kaya mo bang kantahin na walang I'll be there? Straight lang. Kaya mo?
I'll be there.
Better. Thank you.
You know I'll be there. Just call my name. I'll be there. I'll be there.
See? Yun lang. Kamuntik-muntikan ng walang umikot.
All right. So let's now hello. Okay. Okay, let's continue now. Okay, let me now call on the, okay, let's continue now. Okay, let me now call on Teacher Maribel. Okay, so Teacher Maribel, actually, feedback is provided by the coaches. And we'll take a look at the strategies on how they provided feedback. Teacher Maribel, let's start with the feedback provided by Coach Bamboo. Okay, Coach Bamboo said, for me, it was very shaky. Okay, what do you notice with that feedback? What was the content of his feedback? Teacher Maribel.
It is a direct feedback.
Yeah, all of the feedback are actually
Yeah.
direct, Teacher Maribel. But when you say it was shaky, I think you were nervous, okay? What feedback is actually given?
Do we call that one? They,
Mhm.
Oh.
Okay, this is similar to the kind of feedback when you say your voice is loud. Okay, you are looking at the eyes of your audience. Okay, your voice is soft. Okay, you are standing straight. Okay, so what do you call those kinds of feedback?
It is a constructive feedback.
Constructive feedback means you're giving suggestions. Okay, but in that case, it was shaky. There were no suggestions given yet. Okay, so Teacher Maribel, okay, what was the direction of the feedback? It was shaky. Your voice is loud. Your voice is soft. Okay, what are we doing?
Do we call I forgot about
Okay. The voice is shaky. If you look into that sentence, what is the function of shaky for the voice? Okay. Teacher Mary Joy, you're raising your hand. You like to help? Go ahead, Teacher Mary Joy.
I think, sir, it's kind of a negative feedback.
Negative?
Yung sinabi po ni Coach Bamboo sa auditioner natin.
Okay.
Yes
Okay.
po.
Let's go back to the content. Okay. Teacher Vanessa, yeah?
Sir,
What kind of feedback was provided?
is it direct feedback?
All of the feedback are actually direct, Vanessa. We already mentioned that a while ago. Okay, yes, Teacher Divlin.
It's task feedback.
We're not yet into the task because into the task feedback, it was done by the third coach.
Okay.
The second coach actually. Okay, now, what was that being given at the beginning when you say the voice is shaky, your voice is loud, your voice is in tune? Okay, what are we doing with the performance? The performance was the voice, and we're saying it's shaky, it's loud, it's soft. Okay.
I think it's a kind of feedback that gives makes the person or the learner aware of the attitude
Okay.
that it's being shown.
Okay. Teacher Divlin, I think you're in the right direction. Okay, the attitude. We're actually characterizing the performance. Okay, I think that's what you mean, Teacher Divlin, right? Yes. So when you characterize the performance, okay, let's go back now to Teacher Maribel. So you are now describing the performance because the word shaky, when you say loud for the voice, they modify the performance. They're modifiers, right, Teacher Maribel? Okay. Yes, so you are now describing the performance. In that way, you're in the first stage of your feedback when you describe the performance. Okay, so you are describing the status of the performance. Okay, so status. Okay, you're describing the performance. That's status. That's the initial, what is being shown by the learner. Okay. Next, the next one, Teacher Lalaine, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Teacher Lalaine. And then Coach Sharon Shed. Alam mo yung nginig, okay? Sabi niya, mas maganda kung babawasan natin. Okay? There's now a specific way being suggested here. Okay? So, what was the content of that one? Let's focus when she said in the statement, mas maganda kung babawasan natin. Okay, what was the direction of the feedback? First, Bamboo described the task. And then what did Sharon did when she said, mas maganda kung babawasan? Go ahead.
I think Sharon is actually saying or actually providing room for improvement.
Room
Better
for
way.
improvement. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Or how to
improve.
How to improve the task. Okay, and
Yes,
she
sir.
recommended a particular way on how to improve it by lessening the shaking. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So initially, S, you describe the situation. T, you now give what task needs to be done. Okay, so letter S, describe the situation. T, describe the task and what needs to be done, and that was given by Sharon. All right, and then Coach Leah came in. Okay, Coach Leah went near the learner and then she said, let's sing it again. Okay, but this time when you sing it, okay, she did some modeling. Okay, sing it this way without too much shaking. There was modeling and then she allowed the child to do it. Okay, Teacher Neil John, did you see some improvement in the learner? Did the singing improve?
I'm not really good at music, sir, but I can see that I can hear that I think there's an improvement.
There was
Coach
improvement.
Leia. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now let's look into the direction. Okay, given by Coach Leia. Bamboo described the situation. Coach Sharon provided the task that needs to be done. What did Leia do? There are two things that Leia did. Go ahead.
I think, sir, Coach Leia provided assistance to perform the task properly, and I would refer to that as scaffolding po.
Okay, okay. There was support provided. There was scaffolding. I like the term provided by Coach Leia. What was the support provided by Coach Leia?
The modeling, I think.
The modeling. Okay,
yes.
She sang it. Can you sing it like? And then she did it herself, and then she allowed the child to do it. Let's focus on that part. Why was it necessary for the child to do it again?
In order for us as teacher not to see the changes of the behavior if the skill is really learned.
Yes.
By the way that you taught the skill. If not, then you would find another way to let the student learn.
Yes. All right. So it was important for the learner to demonstrate again the singing. Okay. After the support or the scaffold. Okay. That part is the action where you see the learner do it again, making use of the scaffold or support provided. Okay. And then you said, Sir Neil John, that there was improvement. Okay. And that was the results. Okay. So our acronym here, when you provide your feedback process, is the STAR. S. You describe the situation, right? Teacher Maribel? Descriptions. Okay. You provide modifiers. You characterize the performance, Teacher Maribel. Okay. Then T. Okay, provide the task, provide recommendations, okay, provide strategies how to do it. A, provide some scaffold to see and let the learner demonstrate it again and see the action being done again. A, that was done by Coach Leia. And letter R, you should be able to see the results, that there is some forms of improvement. And in that case, okay, we have seen that the learner, that the performance improved, the singing improved, because of the feedback provided. And this is actually shown by several studies how powerful feedback is in improving students' performance. There was even a meta-analysis that was conducted by Hattie and Timperley in 2012, showing that feedback accounts for a large variance in helping learners improve their performance. It actually accounts for about 30% variance that improve learners' performance. All right, so we'll have another round of this conversation later on. Let's now look into some guidelines on how we actually provide feedback. All right. So take note that feedback is provided alongside with the results of assessment. We need to see the results of assessment so that we have opportunities to provide feedback. And in terms of the timing, feedback can be provided after the students completes a task, and feedback can also be provided while the students are actually performing or conducting the task. There are some appropriate situations where feedback is appropriate after the task, and some situations appropriate when the task is still being performed. Okay, example, you allow the learners to finish the sit works first, the drills, exercises. The learners do the board work first. Okay, some demonstrations in front of the class needs to be done first. Then after these tasks are done, then you provide your feedback. Then there are also some tasks where it is necessary that feedback needs to be given while the task is ongoing. For example, while the students are writing, you go around and you point out if there are some parts of the writing that needs to be improved. While the learners are doing the task, remind them about the criteria in your instructions again. Sometimes when students are performing, so that you will not disrupt their performance, you provide some cues, okay, so that they would know how to improve. You ask them to recheck their own work, or sometimes while they're doing it, point out the error so that they would notice it, or retell and review the criteria again while they are going through it. Sometimes the feedback given while the students are doing the task is beneficial because it avoids them for submitting to you work with several errors, and you actually avoid students making mistakes before they submit to you the final work or the final product. Now, when you give feedback, after the students complete a task, you have to provide again an opportunity for the students to redo the task so that they will have an opportunity to revise it, and they give it to you again, and you see the improvement based on your set of criteria and standards. So here are some of the things that we need to remember when you provide feedback. Number one, it should be related to student performance. Okay, when you say that the student performance is related to the kind of feedback that you provide, what you need to be guided here are the set of criteria. So whatever criteria that you have agreed upon with the learners that is found in your rubric or in your checklist, or in whatever rating scale that you are using, this guides you on the contents of the feedback that you provide to your students. When you give your feedback, it should be helping your students to think about the strategies on how to meet the goal. If these are the parts that needs to be improved, what are some of the techniques? What are some of the ways on how they will do the revision? These refers to the strategies. That's why we're saying that feedback needs to be constructive, because you need to provide some recommendations on how they will be revising their work or improve their work. The feedback tells about the students' progress. It tells them their present status, so that they will have an idea on what improvement needs to be done. Feedback needs to be given immediately and frequently. Never get tired of giving your feedback so that the learners are reminded all of the time. And of course, it's very important that feedback needs to be specific and it needs to be descriptive. It needs to be very concrete. It tells a course of action. So when you say very good, period, excellent, period, and those are only the content of your feedback, it's going to be confusing for the child because we do not know what specific aspect of the behavior or the work or the performance needs some improvement, or which part of the work actually needs to be commended. They might think that the entire work is actually excellent or very good when you simply say very good on the work. That's why you need to point out specifically on which part of the work is good and why is that part of the work very good by describing what the learner did in the work. For example, when you say your essay is very good and then you stop there, this is giving confusion to the learner. You need to point out which part of the essay is good by describing it. Okay, so you can put together saying very good together with describing what was very good in the work. Okay, the work is accurate because you started with a topic sentence in your essay and the succeeding sentences was followed by supporting sentences. You see, you're describing it concretely. Why is the work good? Okay, that's specific and descriptive. Feedback focuses on key errors. So you tell the learners that if they lack and did not meet specific sets of criteria, remind them about the criteria so that and point out the error. Part of the guidelines in writing an essay is that the first line begins with an indentation. Take a look at your first line. Kindly check if you have provided an indentation. Okay, so this is a different way of saying you did not put indentation in your work. It's another way of saying you did not follow the instructions again. So rather than saying those statements, okay, remind them of the criteria and then tell them to recheck their work if it matches the criteria. Okay, and your feedback is again an opportunity for you to acknowledge the efforts given by your learners. Okay, so here are examples of bad feedback with feedback that are concrete and specific. So we're saying that the first column are bad feedback because they are broad. Example, when you say the essay is good. So this is broad. We don't know which part of the essay is really good. The essay is a bit complex to say that the entire essay is good. However, but when you say you started the paragraph in your essay with a topic sentence and supporting sentences were provided, this helps strengthen the point that you want to make. So this is more concrete and specific. Now, when you say the painting needs improvement, I can't see any object. So again, this is broad. Okay, but when you say perhaps you may want to use other colors in your painting so that we can distinguish the objects, you're now recommending what the learner needs to do to improve on the work. Okay. Now, a while ago, we have emphasized that the criteria serves a guide, okay, on the contents of the feedback that you provide. Okay, let's say that you ask the learners to write a technical paper, and here are the following criteria. So the part needs to be organized according to the guide questions provided by the teacher. The ideas are well understood by the reader. The information included are accurate, and more than 5 references are used. Okay, now, when you say there are several grammatical errors in the paper, so the grammar, the mechanics is not part of the criteria. However, you still need to correct the grammar in terms of the work. So, however, a feedback that is more aligned with the criteria would be this one. Check again the idea conveyed by the author in the journal because there are several discrepancies found on page 3. So this is the criteria that pertains to the accuracy of the information. Okay, when you say the heading needs to be in bold font. So you didn't say anything about the format in the criteria. So rather, a feedback that is more aligned with the criteria would be add one more reference to make the support further your claim on the benefits of using organic fertilizers on page 5. So here you are referring to the criteria in terms of the use of references. Okay. A while ago, we said that feedback needs to recommend, okay? It needs to provide suggestions. So when you say, I cannot hear your voice, you are not giving constructive feedback here because you're not suggesting what the learner needs to do. But rather you say, make your voice louder. Okay? Like what Sharon did, mas maganda kung babawasan yung nginig. Okay. And when you say, why are you looking at the ceiling while speaking? Okay, so again, this is bad feedback because you are not recommending. Okay, so rather than saying that, you say, look at your classmates when you speak in front. Okay, so this is recommending. Okay, now, furthermore, here are characteristics of giving effective praise together with feedback. Take note that praise can be helpful if the student is helped in drawing attention towards their progress and their performance. So the formula here is give the praise together and alongside with the feedback strategies that we have provided. So you say very good Then it is followed why the work is very good by describing the task that is more specific, and you recommend what needs to be done. Okay, generally, if the praise is spontaneous, they will see the authenticity that you really appreciate the work. Okay, there are also instances that you need to provide feedback while performance is ongoing and you do not like to disrupt the learner. That's why you use body language or gestures as forms of feedback. So feedback is not verbal all of the time. They can be gestures and nonverbal behaviors like emblems. So emblems are body cues that directs one or two verbal translations. So they are used consciously to communicate particular messages that are used to substitute for words such as the wait sign, the quiet sign, or the okay sign. So while the students are performing, you give some of these cues so that they are reminded what to do. You can also use illustrators. So illustrators are used to increase the clarity and awareness, and this is used to augment on what is being said. It reinforces the strength of the emotional message, like the Finch close. If you tell them to stop now, you do like that, or your fingers closed, make it little, okay, or make your voice slower, okay, your hand pointing if you want them to emphasize on what they are saying or performing, okay. Now, take note that when you provide your feedback, here are some of the contents that you need to be mindful, okay? Provide feedback on the parts of the answer or the response that needs to be corrected, okay? Specify those parts that needs some improvement and feedback on that aspect. And then when you give feedback, make sure that you provide a specific strategy to be used when performing the task, okay? Lessen it, give more of it, expand, give more example. Okay, these are some strategies. Read it again, redo it again, but this time use the guide. Okay, so you're now providing specific strategies on how to improve the task. Okay, and then sometimes you also need to give the procedure. First, do step one. Then after you complete that, do this one. Okay, but first I want to see how you do step one, then show it to me first. Show the step-by-step procedure when you give the feedback, because you want to see the learner go through those steps. Direct the learner where to find the answer. Sometimes when you ask a question and the learners are having difficulty answering, tell them, okay, I want you to read again page 25 of the book on the second paragraph, read that fast, and then tell me what the answer is, how you understood it, okay? Tell it to me in your own words. Okay, direct the learner where to find the answer. Help the learners think about the appropriate response. Sometimes you use illustrations, you use scenarios, you use example. After they have observed these illustrations, examples, and scenarios, then it helps them give the appropriate response to your original question. Okay, feedback should be able to clarify some misconception to the learner. Sometimes when they answer and respond, okay, repeat what they have said, but this time give the corrected response. Okay, so these are some of the contents of your feedback. All right, we will be focusing on 3 forms of feedback. One is when you focus on the product and the performance. Second, focusing on the procedure. And 3, focusing on the strategy on how to improve the work. So when you say feedback, focusing on the product or performance, okay, this is the kind of feedback that describes how well the performance was done. Example, when you tell your students, all parts of the paper is complete. So you're describing the product. You have used up-to-date references in your paper. Okay, you're describing the paper. Include a definition of terms based on the main author. Rephrase the findings stated by the author on page 25. So you're now providing feedback based on how they did the work. Okay, focusing on the procedure. So this is the kind of feedback that looks at the step-by-step process that needs to be done by the learner. Example, you tell them, follow the guidelines stated in the workbook in conducting the experiment so that you will get accurate results. Try a different procedure in solving the problem. Or You give them ways like use more adjectives to describe the main character in your story. So you're giving them procedure as part of your feedback. You want them to follow a specific step or procedure. 3, your feedback can also focus on the strategy on how the learners will improve the work. So when you say strategies, this refers to the different cognitive and metacognitive actions that the learner needs to think about in order for them to better improve the work. These strategies would include planning, monitoring, how they would debug or revise their work, how they monitor their work, how they would do self-evaluation, how they would evaluate their own work, how they review their work based on a set of criteria, what specific strategies, techniques they need to use more effectively, what specific conditions they need to think about to accomplish the work well. So this refers to cognitive and metacognitive strategies. Okay, look at this one. Given the criteria on delivering a speech, which part did you achieve well and provide evidence? This is actually a metacognitive strategy on self-evaluation. You want the learner to self-evaluate their own work. Okay, so the criteria is given. You want them to compare their own performance with that of their own work by asking them, which part did you achieve well and provide evidences? Okay, look at the next one. Use a different method to check if your answers are correct. Okay, so you want the students to monitor their own performance. If they try out a different method, if they try out a different strategy, they should be able to arrive at the correct answers. So this is self-monitoring. So that's a metacognitive strategy. Look at the next one. Compare your work with the model. Which parts are different? How can you improve it further? Okay, so you want the learner to think of ways on how they will improve the work. So this is a debugging strategy because you want the learners to make some revisions. All right, I'm going to give you now a set of scenarios where the student performs, and there are some room in the scenario where the students will have to improve on. Okay, so your task here is to tell me first, what is the focus of feedback? Do we need to focus on the performance, procedure, or strategy? And then give the actual feedback to the learner. Okay, so let's start with Teacher Lalaine. Again, Teacher Lalaine, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, so the first one here is for you. So in a purposive communications class, the students are tasked to write an essay. One student did not provide an indentation in the first line of the composition. Okay, so first, focus of the feedback and then give the feedback. Teacher Lalaine.
Yes, sir. Sir, if I'm going to provide the feedback,
is it focusing on performance, procedure, or strategy?
Sir, what are the 3 things again? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Okay.
Procedure.
Okay, first is focus on the product or performance. Second is focus on the procedure. Third is focus on the strategy. So what would be the focus?
Performance.
Okay, so give the feedback now. What will you tell the student?
First, I'm going to praise the content first. I mean, giving commendation, and after giving commendation on the content of the essay, it's time to give the feedback wherein take note of the indentation. I mean, or provide indentation on your work. Would that be fine, sir?
Yes, yes. Okay, point out that part and then tell the learner, put an indentation.
Yes, sir.
In the first line of your
the composition.
Okay, so that's what you can do. And then let's say the student looked at you and then scratched his head. The student does not know what an indentation is. What will you do next?
Yes, that's the time that I'll give her the sample or
Yes.
the model.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So get
Yes.
another paper from the seatmate who has an indention.
Yes.
Show a model. Very good. I love the strategy that you did. Show that model. Show that example. This is how an indention looks like.
That would serve as his or her guide. The
Yes.
pattern.
Yes. 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 Okay. Very good strategy. Teacher Lalaine. Okay. Next,
Thank you,
Teacher
sir.
Vanessa. Teacher Vanessa.
Sir.
All right. Your turn. The students were tasked to write a letter to a selected classmate. One student wrote to a classmate, and the student provided complaints about the behavior of the classmate. The students ended up saying bad words to the classmates that are hurtful, okay, in the letter. Okay, what is the focus of the feedback?
Sir, maybe the focus on the strategy or to improve the words.
Sige. Okay, so give me now the feedback.
Okay po. So for me, I addressed it directly and immediately, and stay calm and straight explain the simple manner that that can hurt someone's feeling, that most of people do not like words. So uh, I will suggest that she or he might change her method or strategy to improve the work or some words that the student used.
Okay. Ma'am, let's say I'm the student. Which work here needs to be improved? Which part of my work needs to be improved?
The behavior of the student, or the maybe the student want to say something, but she or he cannot explain it, or he cannot use the words
Okay.
right.
Teacher Vanessa, let's do it this way. I'm your student. Okay. Tell me what you're going to directly say to the student, to me.
Okay, sir. So I will say that some student I will
Tell it to me. Tell it to me. Tell it to me.
uh,
You can use my name, Carlo. Go ahead.
okay. Some of your words in the letter that you write, uh, your classmate, or the bad words you are used are being hurt. Okay, and
Are hurtful.
are hurtful. So this is not the right words that you use. And
Okay,
then
okay. Focus on that one. I want you to rephrase that statement. These are not the right words that you rephrase that into a positive statement. There are consequences of using these expressions. But then continue talking to me.
Carlo,
Mm-hmm.
ano bang maganda? What is the right term for that? Oh, Carlo,
Mm-hmm.
can you talk to your classmate, or can you talk to your classmate and say sorry to him?
Focus on the performance. Kina-counseling mo kami. Okay, focus on the performance. Focus on improving the letter.
I will read, sir, the paragraph again. I'm nervous. Sir, the letter selected.
Tell me the feedback.
Okay, Carlo, you can improve your. Oh, no. So
Okay.
can you help me?
No. Go.
I'm so nervous.
Your goal here, Vanessa, is to revise the work so that the bad words are not mentioned again. Okay, go ahead. Give me the feedback.
Carlo, I use some words here that the right words or term that you can use so that that your classmate will not hurtful in your letter.
Okay, and then point out those
Okay,
hurtful
sir.
expressions.
I will point out the hurtful expression to the student and then
Okay.
explain that she or he can use another words or
Yes.
good words that cannot hurt her.
Yes, yes. I like the strategy. No, you can underline those hurtful expressions, and then you tell me you can use other words, no, to express these particular expressions. Okay, so rather than saying you're fat, what would I say? You need to start eating less, rather than saying you have a messy hair, you need to use hairbrush often. Ay, mga ganun, ano? Okay, yes, Teacher Vanessa. I love their strategy. It's different. Okay, next, Sir Neil John, you're next. Sir Neil John, ready?
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right,
sir.
this one. The students are tasked to identify the genre of a text. So these are the different genre that they have to identify, whether the text is descriptive, narrative, expository, or argumentative. So this is the text that the students have read. So one of the major reasons for the failure of the malaria reduction project was that it set uniform strategies and policies. By failing to consider variations between governments, geography, and infrastructure, the program was not nearly as successful as it could have been. Sub-Saharan Africa has neither the money nor the infrastructure to support such an elaborate program, and it couldn't be run the way it was meant to. Most African countries don't have the resources to send all of their people to doctors and get shots, nor can they afford to clear wetlands or other malaria-prone areas. The continent's spending per person for eradicating malaria was just a quarter of what Brazil spent. Sub-Saharan Africa simply can't rely on a plan that requires more money, infrastructure, and expertise than they have to spare. Then the student said, this is an expository text. Sir Neil John, what is the correct answer? Is this an expository?
I don't think so, sir.
What is the correct answer first?
Dahil answer how one of them argumentative.
Yes,
argumentative.
this is an argumentative text. All right. Now, the answer of
Mm-mm.
the student is incorrect. Give me the feedback. What is the focus of the feedback first?
Okay, maybe the best feedback that I can give here is that I should have to give
Focus.
him the idea.
Performance, procedure, or strategy.
Performance, sir.
Sige. Then give the feedback now.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to explain to him the difference of these things so that it will be clear to him and to the student, so that he can have the proper distinction of the type of the genre of the texts to be read, and then identify properly. And then I am going to also present other models if possible, in order for the student to relate other texts and being able to consolidate or no to segregate properly a text based on its genre. So first, sir, I am going to yes, sir.
Go ahead. Finish your answer first.
Yes, the first step is I am going to explain again the types of text so that it will be clear to the student. And then another would be to provide a model, another step. And then, yun.
Okay. Yeah, this is actually a more indirect way for them to learn distinction across the different genres. Let's focus on the answer of the learner. You want the learner to identify that this genre is argumentative. How will you help the learner deduce the thinking that this text is argumentative, not an expository? Let's focus on the mistake or the error of the learner here. Okay, give me a different way of doing it. Give me the feedback.
Okay, so clearly the error of the student is that the student is not able to identify properly. What genre. Oh yes. So then I can point out specific lines not to present, or ideas not to present, what type of genre would it pertain to if
Okay.
ever these kind
Yes.
of statements will be
Okay.
presented?
What
Opo.
lines are you going to point out first to the learner? Okay, tell it to me. Let's communicate as a teacher and I'm your student. Okay, first. Okay, what will you tell me? You do the same strategy with what we did with Vanessa a while ago. Carlo, you can call me Carlo. Go ahead.
Okay, Carlo, listen to me.
I'm
Okay,
listening.
I want you to read and understand this paragraph
I did
better,
already.
and then let us see. Okay, and
I
then
did
that's
already.
very good. Now let's see what is being expressed in the paragraph. No,
Which part is
so we
being
can
expressed?
see that what is being expressed in paragraph. Okay, so now let us
Malaki pa yung
see.
expression. Focus on specific lines you want me to notice.
Okay, let me take a look at the paragraph, sir. Okay. Okay. So first is if ever the student, you can understand na already the concept of the justification or the arguments presented. I am going to specifically point out some arguments in the paragraph. So for example, most African countries don't have the resources to
Okay,
spend
that's
all.
one. Okay, yeah,
That
that's
could be
one.
one of the statement that I could point out. And then we can talk about the argument being presented in that statement.
Where?
And then the other could be that they don't have the resources to send
Okay,
over
that's the second one.
the lack of resources. So that could be an argument. Another argument could be simply can't rely on a plan that requires more money, no, because nga on lack of the resources.
And then
So
after you point out those
based on
three,
those,
next, okay. Based on those,
then based on those things, no, so we can now identify what genre of a text this one is, no, based on the statements that I pointed out. So done. So what do you think is the type of text aside no, because it cannot be considered as an expository text. So what do you think, what type of text do you think this is? Parang ganun, sir.
Okay, okay. What is the main characteristic of an argumentative text? There are opposing ideas,
Opposing
right?
ideas, sir.
Okay, you can tell me, based on those three statements that I have pointed out, okay, what are they contradicting? Okay, yeah, can ask me that one. So they're contradicting the effectiveness. Okay, so if there's a contradiction, you tell me that is an argument. You can tell me that one so that it can be clarified. All right, Sir Niljan? Okay, so
Okay, sir.
yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so you're actually teaching me how to point out an argument. Okay, so that is focusing on strategy. Okay, next. You're ready, teacher Divelin? Teacher Divelin?
Yes, sir.
All right, you're next. Look at this one. The students were asked to identify the main idea of the paragraph. Okay, this is the paragraph. It is incredibly narrow-minded to assume that the only service libraries offer is book lending. Libraries have a multitude of benefits, and many are not available if the library has a physical location. Some of these benefits include acting as a quiet study space, giving people a way to converse with their neighbors, holding classes on a variety of topics, providing jobs, answering patron questions, keeping the community connected. One neighborhood found that after a local library instituted community events such as playtimes for toddlers and parents, job fairs for teenagers, and meeting spaces for senior citizens, over a third of residents reported feeling more connected to their community. Similarly, Pew survey conducted in 2015 found that nearly two-thirds of American adults feel that closing their local library would have a major impact on their community. People see the libraries as a way to connect with others and get their questions answered. Benefits tablets can't offer nearly as well or as easily. Tablets would refer to the electronic device. And then the student said that the main idea is a survey was conducted among Americans about the library. Of course, this is not an accurate main idea. Okay, what should be the focus of the feedback? Divelin.
It has to be
Focus on
cognitive
strategy.
sir.
Okay, yes, because you need to teach the learner here. Yeah, focus on strategy because you need to teach the learner how to derive the main idea accurately.
Yeah.
All right, give the feedback.
On this case, can you try to read the paragraph again?
I did already.
Good. And what do you think is the is it focusing on the survey?
I think so.
On this case, when we say main idea of the paragraph, it does not only focus on one idea. So the one that you've mentioned, a survey was conducted among Americans about the library, is just one of the ideas in the paragraph.
Okay.
So could you try to point out other ideas aside from the one that you mentioned?
Okay, I love the way you say it. Okay, teacher Divelin. Okay, when you say the survey, this is just one of the several ideas. Can you point out other ideas being indicated? Yes, I love that strategy. So you're now dispersing, making explicit all of the possible ideas to choose from. Okay, good strategy, teacher Divelin. So I will say, ma'am, it focuses on the benefits of the library. That's one idea as well. Continue.
It is you mentioned benefits. Okay, so if it is beneficial, so what do you think is the focus of the paragraph?
Okay, I think the paragraph is telling us how advantageous the library is, because if you will be looking at the other ideas, they are citing examples on how it becomes advantageous to the community.
So do you think it is I mean, is it do you think that's the main idea? Are you sure about that?
Okay, probably a better way here is to compare that idea with the idea of the survey. Which do you think is a main focus, the benefits or the survey?
Okay.
Yun na lang. Sige.
So could you compare that to the first statement that you have mentioned? So
Okay.
what do you think is the bigger idea?
Very good. I like the way you say bigger. Which do you think is a bigger idea? The benefits of the library or about the survey? Yeah. So then in that way, I would realize. Yeah. Teacher Divelin, very good for the deduction that you made. Okay. First, you made me identify other ideas, and then you made me compare each of the idea on which one is a bigger idea. Then that would help me identify the main idea. Very good, teacher Divelin. Okay? Maganda yung deduction that you did. All right. Okay. So I'll stop the presentation now. Okay. Teacher Mary Joy, you're still here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can you give me a little bit of your insights on what we did in this exercise, Teacher Mary Joy?
Sir, actually, it is very refreshing for me, sir. So I came to evaluate myself in terms of giving feedback to my students. So I learned that there are processes or different types of feedback or forms of feedback, like focusing on the product or performance, the procedure, and the strategy. So I think I am doing it wrong all the way in my how many years of teaching. So hopefully after this, sir, I can provide more appropriate feedback to my students.
All right.
Hopefully, sir.
Okay, thank you. And we will now look at one of the applications of feedback on how to improve on and develop learners' mindset. And this will be continued by our next speaker, Dr. Plata. Okay, Dr. Plata, take it away.
Carlo for the interactive webinar, and let's continue. All right, let me share. Okay. All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Carlo, for the interactive webinar. So let's go to part 2. So let me share my screen. Let's pause for a minute. No, let's pause for a minute for a self-compassion session, and it's also a good way to take a break. If you want to close your eyes, you may close your eyes. If not, it's still okay. So you can repeat in your mind the following: may I believe in myself. May I find peace. May I be kind to myself unconditionally. May I be safe. May I have contentment. May I be happy. And may I be healthy. Okay, so whenever you're stressed out or overwhelmed, just take this 1 minute mindful self-care, and you can repeat these words or affirmations. Okay, so this second half, I'm going to talk about teacher feedback toward a growth mindset. All right. If you have a paper, write your answers to the following answers only. So just write the letter of your answer. So question number 1. The OECD PISA 2018 results show that a majority of Filipinos had a blank. Now, what's your answer? A, fixed mindset. B, growth mindset. C, resilient mindset. And D, winning mindset. So just write the letter. So 1, is it A or B or C or D? Okay, next, number 2. Dr. Dweck coined the terms fixed mindset and growth mindset to describe the underlying beliefs people have about A, talent and grit, B, talent and motivation, C, learning and intelligence, and D, learning and motivation. Okay, what's your answer? Next, number 3. What do you call this growth mindset intervention of teaching students about the malleability of the brain? Letter A, teaching about plasticity. B, teaching about neuroplasticity. Training on malleability. Or D, training on mindfulness. Number 4, a person with a fixed mindset is afraid to make mistakes. A, does not want to appear like a failure, or B, takes feedback personally. Letter C, thinks that intelligence is fixed, and letter D, all of the above. And lastly, number 5, how can teachers help students who made mistakes in their assignments? Letter A, teach about the important role of mistakes in the learning process. Give specific feedback for students to address the writing problem. Praise the good points and sandwich the suggestions for improvement. Or letter D, all of the above. Okay. So you will have a chance to review your answers later on while I provide the input in this session. Okay. So first, in the PISA 2019 report, this report was based on the 2018. No? A majority of students in the Philippines expressed a fear of failure. Some 72% agreed or strongly agreed that when they fail, they worry about what others think of them. The average in the OECD is 56%. In almost every education system, including in the Philippines, girls express greater fear of failure than boys. And in this gender gap was considerably wider amongst top performing students. May I ask Teacher Lalaine? Teacher Lalaine, what do you think is the impact or the effect to our students, Filipino students, if they have a fear of failure? Or during the session of Dr. Carlo, did you experience the fear of failure or making a mistake? Teacher Lalaine.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think is the effect if students have a fear of failure?
As for me, ma'am, they are afraid to make, to commit failure. It's because of low self-esteem, I guess, ma'am.
No, what do you think is the effect? For example, during the first session, did you have that fear that you're going to make a mistake or not? You're not going to answer the question. Did you feel that kind?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes, ma'am.
how did that fear affect? How did that fear affect you during the session?
Paano ba? Kasi I didn't feel that way naman, ma'am.
You did not. But was there a time in your are you in graduate school or when you were still a student? Was there a subject that you feared the most?
Yes, ma'am. When I was in college.
Okay, what subject was that?
I think that's I forgot the name of the subject.
But
Something
what
to
is
do
the
with literary criticism.
me too. No? What was the negative effect because you were so afraid to fail?
I tend to drop the subject, ma'am, if I have a choice.
So students who have a fear of failure feel na they don't want to continue, no?
Yes,
They're not motivated anymore. Yeah. Thank you, Teacher Lalaine.
Yes,
okay. So that's very important, no, in the context of the topic about growth mindset. And the other significant finding is that in most education systems, including the Philippines, students who hold a growth mindset or disagreed or strongly disagree with the statement, your intelligence is something about you that you can change, tend to report less fear of failure. But in the Philippines, only 31% of students hold a growth mindset, which is one of the lowest, where the average is 63%. No? So please take note of the significant finding that we have a very low number of students based on the PISA survey who hold a growth mindset. And so we have a very important role, no, as teachers. Okay, now let's see if you have a fixed or a growth mindset. All you have to do is answer A for agree or D disagree. So let's not make it complicated. So just say A if you agree or D disagree. No. So number one, no matter how much intelligence you have, you can always change it a good deal. Do you agree with that statement? A lang, agree or disagree. Number two, you can learn new things, but you cannot really change your basic level of intelligence. So do you agree with that statement? Number three, I like my work best when it makes me think hard. Agree or disagree? Next, number four, I like my work best when I can do it really well without too much trouble. Agree or disagree? Okay. Number five, I like work that I will learn from even if I make a lot of mistakes. Do you agree with that statement? Number six, I like my work best when I can do it perfectly without any mistakes. Number seven, when something is hard, it just makes me want to work more on it, not less. And number eight, to tell the truth, when I work hard, it makes me feel as though I'm not very smart. Okay? So, do you agree or disagree? So, let's go back to the first one. Okay. So, if you want to check your answer, if you have a fixed or a growth mindset, the odd numbers, okay? The odd numbers 1, 3, 5, 7 are statements of people with a growth mindset. Whereas numbers, so the even number, those are statements for people with a fixed mindset. No? So don't worry because mindset is not fixed. No, you can improve it, and sometimes you have a fixed mindset, sometimes you have a growth mindset, no, depending on the situation. In general, I have a fixed mindset with regard to math because I had that traumatic experience when I was in third grade. When I was in third grade, we had multiplication table quizzes, and I was in the first row. But I had not memorized the multiplication table, and I could not answer. I moved to the first row, back to the second row, to the third row, to the fourth row, and found myself beside the trash can. And up to now, I can still picture in my head the picture, that trash can, and the feeling of shame because of that experience, and that affected my my mindset about math. But there was a teacher who made the difference in my life, and that was Dr. Brian Gozun, who was my advanced statistics teacher. What he started to teach from my level. No, it was basic, but he started from the lowest level, and I slowly, gained my confidence, and he would give me feedback about my paper, about my stat report, and so on. So I'm sharing that experience because our words can make a difference, through the feedback that we give our students. Okay, so let's go back that a person that mindsets change, and it depends on the situation, and we can make a difference. So let's go back to a person with a growth mindset believes that intelligence can change. All right, let me ask Teacher Vanessa, was there, can you recall in school, for example, that you used to have a fixed mindset about a subject or a topic, and then later on, your teacher helped you to develop a growth mindset? Teacher Vanessa? Hi, Teacher Vanessa. Are you here? You're on mute. Oh, she's not here. Teacher Marjorie. Teacher Marjorie. Sorry. What happened? Sorry. Teacher Marjorie. La. Okay. So in the interest of time, no? I will continue. So a person with a growth mindset believes that intelligence can change. From my own experience about math, I developed a growth mindset because of my teacher and realized, no, that intelligence and math literacy can change. A person with a growth mindset feels that it's okay to think hard. Okay. And then it's okay, for a person with a growth mindset to make mistakes, because that's the part of the learning process. And a person with a growth mindset is willing to work more on a particular task. So see the difference and the impact of mindset on motivation and performance, no, in the class. Okay. So that's, on the other hand, a person with a fixed mindset is afraid to make mistakes, feels that it should be easy for me, no? And because they are afraid to make mistakes, they don't want to try hard, especially, for example, for struggling Filipino readers. My mentee conducted a study among Filipino, among adolescent readers, struggling adolescent readers, and found that they're afraid. Some of them are not motivated to read anymore or to learn reading anymore, no? Probably because of the past experiences or the feedback that they got from their teachers. So the highlights are, a person with a growth mindset emphasizes that learners embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, see efforts as the path to mastery, learn from criticism, and find lessons and inspirations in the success of others. Let me check if I am still on the call, because you are so quiet. Teacher Pia, am I still on the call?
Yes, you are, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, what's your growth mindset story? So think about a teacher who inspired you based on his or her feedback, or a mentor who helped you develop a growth mindset. May I ask Teacher Neil John? Teacher Neil John, do you have...
Hello, good.
All right. Can you recall a teacher who inspired you based on his or her feedback, or a mentor who helped you develop a growth mindset?
Yes, ma'am. I am not really good in sports, but some teacher in my high school years, my teacher in my high school, who is my coworker now, had provided me some instruction, giving me a good feedback, no, that we can do things even if we are at first we are not good at that. Now there are ways wherein we just have to practice, and then we can be good at that skill po. Yun po yung ano. I will not mention na lang po that teacher.
Thank you, Teacher Neil John. Normally, when I do a session like this, I would ask the participants to turn on their microphone and say the name, no, of the teacher or mentor who inspired them. All right, but I want you to think of that person and thank that person, no, for helping you. Teacher Mary Joy, hi. You raise your hand. Yes.
I remember my late professor in college, ma'am, Mrs. Irma Mangdinong. Way back kasi when I was in high school, I was very shy. I don't want to be the leader of the group. But then when I went college, we were only few in our group. So she encouraged me to be a leader in one of the activities. And eventually I developed my leadership skill through her motivation and guidance, ma'am.
Thank you for sharing that, Teacher Mary Joy. No, so teachers really can make a difference, and we can inspire our students. So thank you, Teacher Mary Joy. All right. So what I'm going to share to you was based on this study. No, through WACS 2018. I will give you the article as well. In her study, she found out that students go through a developmental progression. In the first stage, understanding that intelligence can change and that practice can affect this change. So I also went through that, no, that process. Dr. Brian Gozon, he's a friend of mine. Unfortunately, he passed away, no, but he's a friend of mine. So I was expecting, no, that he would be easy. I mean, he would not make it difficult for me, but he did. No, he did. And so I developed that. I went through the stage that I realized that by practicing using RStudio, no, that software, which was so difficult as well, by practicing, no, I could compute, no, the and solve the problem. The second stage was understanding that effort and taking time leads to increased ability. There were times when I could not do the homework, and so I would ask my classmate to have we should have a group study. And from there, I realized that math takes effort and takes time, it takes practice. The same in reading. Later on in the next session, we will have a session on PISA reading literacy. And reading is like that. So it takes time, and as you practice your reading, you become better at it. The third stage is recognition of improvement as a result of effort. The students need to recognize that, no. So, but if we focus on the mistakes, if we focus on just ranking students, no, students will not be able to develop or recognize improvement. And the last stage is asking for feedback and or seeking challenges. So that's the last stage when you are willing not to ask, can you please give me feedback about my work? So please take note of these 4 stages. So we are going to start with the workshop, and I'm going to give you 3 kinds of feedback. And I will give you 3 feedback, and you will just decide which one you think will lead to a growth mindset and why, will diminish student motivation and why, and which feedback will not have an effect on student motivation and why. And we are going Teacher Divelin. Teacher Divelin?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, kindly read this one. And what do you think according to the study, did this lead to growth mindset or fixed mind or no effect, or this led did this lead to fixed mindset? Growth, fixed, or what is the other one? Diminished motivation will not have an effect. Okay. Please read first.
Okay. You have an exclamation point. You have a question that comes next. You have a period that goes with the statement. So you're using all different kinds of punctuation that makes it so interesting.
All right. Do you think this statement will lead to a growth mindset, or no effect, or fixed mindset?
I think this would also give a person a growth mindset as well.
Okay. Why did you
because
say so?
the last statement is not that negative.
Yeah. Okay. What else do you notice about this kind of feedback?
There are a lot of statements that describes the performance
of students. Very good, Teacher Dively, thank you for that. No? So according to that research, because it's specific, instead of saying very good, good job, period, no? The teacher gave specifically the specific points, and in the exit reflection of students, the students, they were able to identify, I grew, or my strength is in exclamation, in using the period and different punctuation marks. Okay, thank you. Now let's go to the next one. Is Teacher Mary Joy still here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Teacher Mary Joy, please read.
I love how you started it. This is my BFF, Ellie, and a cute picture of her in a dress smiling. I like that a lot. Wow, I am just so impressed.
Okay, did this lead, do you think, according to research, this led to a growth mindset, fixed mindset, no effect?
I think this is a growth mindset, ma'am.
Because?
Because aside from using different punctuations, ma'am, it also expresses different emotions, or it describes, or the person is actually appreciating somebody. And I think that is a good sign of having a growth mindset.
All right, thank you, Teacher Mary Joy. So you see praising, no? Praising, but very subjective about the feeling of the teacher. But according to research, this did not lead to a growth mindset in writing. Why? No, because it does not say something about the writing itself. Yeah. So this study also helped me realize that by merely praising, good job, no? Or smiley, no? Just putting that will not lead to a growth mindset because it's not specific. So this is a different teacher compared to teacher number 1. Okay, so let's go to number 3. Teacher Maribel, are you still here?
Yes, Mom.
Yes. Can you read the feedback? And then what do you think? Did this lead to growth, fix, or no effect?
In round 6 of the study, Miss Reese stated, but you were missing the quotations that set off your dialogue, okay? I also see that it looks like this is the end, because it's said Ariel. So we would need some end punctuation there. So again, I say that somebody else is speaking. So we need quotations. Something else I noticed with Bell. Bell's a proper noun. What should we do with Bell?
All right. Do you think this led to a growth, fix, or no effect?
This is growth mindset, ma'am.
Because?
Because at the last part, the one who give the feedback asks a question, what should we do with Bell or uh, sorry, the the last one. Okay, something else I noticed with Bell, pointing out the uh, the question or the thing that the student going to do.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Teacher Maribel. According to the study, this led to a fixed mindset because the teacher, not teacher number 3, focused mostly on mistakes. Okay, focus mostly on mistakes. So what we're saying, but what the study is saying is that it's okay not to point out how to improve the paper. But if you focus mostly on mistakes, the students will develop a fixed mindset. No? So please take note of that. Okay. So as a parent also, for those who are parents here, I hope that you are also giving feedback to your children na that you sandwich na good praising a particular, so thank you for cleaning the house, but can you help me, or we can improve your something, no? Okay, so sandwich and then positive again. So conclusions, conclusions about feedback. After reviewing and triangulating the data, 3 major themes emerge. So the good thing about growth mindset, is that it's evidence-based. No? So this example, so she found out that a specific objective feedback about students' writing choices positively impacts writing motivation. Correcting, criticizing, drawing attention to mistakes, undermine students' writing motivation. So imagine, put yourself in the shoes of your students, no? And you encircle everything in red, no? The paper looks bloody. Do you think that you will be motivated to write again? And letter C, students' writing motivation is enhanced by growth mindset feedback. Okay. So I will give you the link to this YouTube what they call this video of my student who studied struggling, or of the kind of praise effort, no, about praising the effort of struggling Filipino readers. So I will give you the link so you can watch it on your own. No? He also gave suggestions and for possible research as well. All right. So we will continue with workshop 1. You will see examples of feedback toward a growth mindset. Choose which one is appropriate for each case. We will start with teacher Lalaine. Okay. So what is the task again? So you will see examples of feedback. Choose which one is appropriate for each case. So for example, you have a student, no? And your student is having a problem at home and is always the lowest, no? The one who gets the lowest grade in your English class. And you notice that this student, sorry, successful pala. Okay. Okay. Sorry. So that's the situation. The student is always the lowest and having problems at home at the same time. And again, no, this student got a low score in the paper. So, for example, the name of the student is Ramon. Teacher Lalaine, what are you going to say to this student during a conference?
Yes, ma'am. Siguro, maybe I could approach the Ramon privately and to talk to him privately and maybe I could start by commending his positive works, and after that, I'll be pointing out also his negative works as well, but
All
in
right.
a good
So
way. So then I
Teacher Lalaine, among the statements here, which one
okay.
will you say?
Okay, give me the time to read po. Okay, wait lang
Sure.
po. Okay, maybe I could use the first
So
statement
say,
on
Ramon.
succeeding when students are not successful. I
Yes.
like the effort you put in, but let's work together to figure out what it is that you're having trouble understanding.
Okay, so thank you. No? So these are some examples of feedback that we can use when students are not successful or when they are successful. No? So remember that for them to develop a growth mindset, you can focus on where they are good at, okay, and then the feedback when they're not successful.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the second situation, Teacher Vanessa. Okay. Teacher Vanessa.
Yes po.
A student, you notice an improvement, no? An improvement. Although there are a lot of grammatical mistakes in the writing, but you have seen an improvement. So what are you going to tell that student?
Am I going to choose po dito, ma'am?
Yes.
You're such a good writer. But you should tell the children that there are goods and bad types of writers, and if they make mistake, then they are bad writers. Praises their ability. Is that not correct?
All right. So thank you. So according to Truax, we should not say you are smart, you are a good writer, you are brilliant, ang tali-talino mo talaga. Because that will develop a mindset that I don't want to make mistakes. No, I don't want to make mistakes. And if somebody is better, they will feel threatened. That's why even honor students, even scholars, have a fixed mindset, in the sense that they are afraid to make mistakes. They are afraid that people will think that they are not smart, and so they fear trying. No, so let us be careful with the praising, no, that we give our students. All right. I will be calling Teacher Marjorie later for the second activity. I will be showing you a video. Okay. I will be showing you a video on neuroplasticity, and what are some feedback practices that will help them understand that literacy can change, reading literacy can change. Okay, so I'll play the video first.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. the old pathway gets used less and less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
Okay, we can rewire our brain. Okay, so teacher, sino nga yung next? Nakalimutan ko na. Is it Teacher Marjorie? Okay. So let's go back so this one is about the neuroplasticity of the brain. So a student comes to you, teacher, nahirapan po ako magbasa, no? What are you going to say to this student in relation to the neuroplasticity of the brain? Teacher, okay. So okay, Teacher Neil John. Teacher Neil John. Teacher, ay wala si Teacher Neil John. All right, let's go to Teacher Divelyn. Teacher Divelyn.
Yes, ma'am. If that is the case, I will tell my student.
So for example, the name of the student is Maria. Hi, Maria.
Maria, actually, everybody, I mean, some students also have the same experience as yours. Actually, when I was at your age, there are also words that I find it difficult to read. But then I practiced and practiced. I trained myself a lot, and I had a lot of improvement. So I suggest that you do the same. Probably it will also work for you.
All right, Teacher Divelyn, thank you so much. No, thank you so much about that feedback. Okay, let's continue. So this one tells us the kind of feedback that will another strategy, no, for giving feedback. So we learned that the feedback should be very specific, focusing on the strengths, the feedback should not just focus on mistakes. The feedback should not just be good job, no, without very specific statements showing the strength. This one shares another type of feedback strategy.
The feedback we give students through assessments influences their mindsets. In many classrooms, students take a test at the end of a unit to see if they've learned the material or not, which can lead students to focus on their performance. However, assessments are critical during learning to shed light on students' learning progress, what they have learned, and what they haven't learned yet. These types of assessments, called assessments for learning or formative assessments, help students develop a growth mindset by focusing them on their learning and understanding, instead of just the final grade. Feedback for students is descriptive and emphasizes their strengths, identifies challenges, and points to next steps. Let's hear more about the impact of assessments for learning from Joe Bowler.
So assessment for learning is based on the principle that students have a full and clear sense of where they're going of what they have to do to be successful. That may sound obvious, but I found that students in maths classrooms rarely know where they are in their learning path, either what they're learning beyond the chapter title, or sometimes I go to students in maths classes and I say, oh, tell me what you're working on, and they'll say, oh, chapter 3. And I'll say, oh, what are you working on exactly? And they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, question 4. And they really can't tell me more than that. So assessment for learning is about helping students know where they are and also how they can be successful. So it's really about communicating three things: where students are, where they need to be, and a way to close the gap between the two. Most students in maths classrooms really get nothing from an assessment result other than a rank or an evaluative statement about where they are compared to others, like a grade such as B or D. That information for students, particularly for those who are getting Ds and are underperforming, is really damaging for them, as it's constantly knocking their self-esteem. So a really interesting experimental study was conducted by Butler, and he compared three conditions. Well, first of all, he compared just two conditions. He gave students grades, and then in the other condition, they gave students diagnostic feedback. And what they found was the students who had no grades, but they got diagnostic feedback, did significantly better in the future. Then they added a third group. They said, oh, why don't we give them both? So they gave grades and feedback, and just feedback. And they found that, again, it was the students who only got feedback who outperformed the others. And those who'd got grades and feedback did the same as those who just got grades, because it turned out that once you give a grade, the student just looks at that. They thought it might be the best of both worlds to get both, but they found that the very best thing you can do for students is to ditch the grade and give them diagnostic feedback. And that feedback helps them understand how they can improve.
All right. So, Teacher Mary Joy. So, a student whose name is Sean, no? Sean can read simple text, no? Especially those with pictures, but find it difficult to read longer texts. So, based on the kind of feedback given by by Joe Boller, what kind of feedback are you giving this student? No, so in this video, she tells na where the student at, okay, where they should be going, the target competence, and then how to address the gap. All right. So what are you going to say to Sean?
Sean, we all go through difficulties in reading, and it takes time for us to be great readers. So we start with simple words. Maybe I can eliminate the pictures, ma'am, so I can really assess if he's reading the words or just guessing the pictures. Mm-hmm. And then when he masters reading the words, and then I can go with phrases. Mm-mm. After phrases, then I can go with sentences, and then so on. Mm-hmm. And maybe I can compliment. I will give him compliment whenever he reads a word correctly, and I will motivate him by saying, "Oh, you are really progressing. So we can now go to the next step of reading."
All right. So, Teacher Mary Joy, thank you so much. No? So, always include in the focusing on strengths. No, what are the strengths, or where are you good at now? Very good that you have read, or you can read now this words, and yeah. All right. Thank you so much. So, this is another strategy.
The feedback we give.
Sorry. Okay. So, let's go to the workshop number 2. So, lack of motivation, what feedback will you give based on the video? Where student is at, where they need to be, and how to get there. All right. So, Teacher Mary Joy already said the strength, and then gap, and how to get there, or strategy using micro steps. Okay. Thank you, sabi ni Teacher Mary Joy, starting with words and then phrases. In another study that I read, they started with infographics, no, advertisements, infographics with pictures and words. And then once they slowly develop their confidence in reading, the task can be more complicated, no? But we should not prevent, no, students from reading text with pictures. Comics will do, no? Comic strips. All right, so this one is another strategy using the power of yet in our feedback. Okay, so let me give the task first. Okay, so after watching the video, I will be asking you, no? I will ask Teacher Maribel, what did you learn from the feedback given by the monster coach, and what did you learn from the questions he asked? Okay, so again, I will ask you, what did you learn from the feedback given by the monster coach, and what did you learn from the questions he asked? This is also a tip for English teachers that before we give the text, we give them the questions so that they will be able to notice the answers to the question. All right, so let me play the video again. This is so cute.
Why the long face?
I can't reach the apples, Gromo. I guess I'm just no good at that kind of thing.
It sounds like your inner critical critter is talking rather loudly today.
My what?
You humans are famous for it, giving yourselves a hard time, letting that nasty little voice inside take over and get you feeling down. You're no good at anything. You're just an all-round failure. Let me ask you something. If you saw a friend unable to reach that apple, would you tell them that they're no good at anything? That they're an all-round failure?
Well, no. That would just be mean.
So why would you say that kind of thing to yourself?
I'm not really sure. I guess I just see other kids who are better than me at things. You know, they're able to do things on the first try. And I just can't.
What is it you want to be able to do?
Reach that apple for one.
So you haven't been able to reach the apple. It doesn't mean that you never will, you just haven't yet. What have you tried already?
I tried jumping, but it's too high.
What else did you try?
Well, nothing else.
It sounds like you're in need of developing your learning superpower of courage a little further. Almost every great success involves courage.
Courage? Isn't that like being brave when you're scared or in danger? I'm not scared or in danger. I just want to reach the apple.
Courage is the ability to do something you know is difficult. Every day we face challenges, some days more than others. Every day we need courage. Having courage helps us to quieten our critical critters. We can all develop the courage to think differently about the challenges we face. What do you notice?
I noticed that the tree's trunk is very smooth. There aren't really any places to put my feet if I wanted to climb it.
And what do you wonder?
I wonder how close I'm already getting to it when I jump. I wonder if I could reach it with a stick or something.
Those sound like the wonderings of a true and courageous problem solver.
So I probably can't reach it today. That's okay. Maybe I can try again tomorrow or next time I'm passing this way. I can't do this yet, but there are still more things I can try. I can't do this yet, but I've got the courage to encourage myself.
All right, so let's go to teacher. What did you learn from the feedback given by the monster coach, or what did you learn from the questions he asked?
I learned that the monster coach try to give lesson to the child to have courage to reach the apple.
What did you learn from the questions he asked?
I love that in doing things, okay, we have to have the courage.
Do you
Right.
recall?
Not to feel, not to fear to fail.
Yeah, but he asked questions, diba? You remember the questions he asked?
The question is, did you try to ask the help from other people? I think that is the question who will pass by.
Oh, okay. So remember the monster coach asked questions, no? What strategies have you tried? No, so this video on the power of yet also help the girl, no, to realize that it's not the end of the world. No, now I cannot do it, but it's not that I can't do it, period, no, but I cannot do it yet. Okay, so I hope that you have learned another strategy for giving feedback, helping students to think of other strategies and helping them to realize that they are not there yet. Okay, so input number 6, feedback literacy and uptake. According to Winston, Dr. Winston, there is a cycle, no, I'm sure you can relate to this when you were still a student. So you submit an assignment, the teacher corrects it, and then the coursework handed back, and you don't know, no, you don't know what's going to do, and then you start, or the cycle starts over. Sometimes we give feedback, and then when I was a graduate student, my teacher, a classmate of mine, was crying, when I asked her what happened, she said the teacher wrote in big bold letters, fuzzy, no, fuzzy. And that kind of feedback, the students that student did not know how to improve the paper because of that. So she's saying that what is uptake? No, uptake means that students are able to understand your feedback and understands what he or she is going to do later on. So that is also feedback literacy. So in general, we all want to meet our own expectations of ourselves, and so being critiqued, or even just the prospect of being critiqued, can present an enormous threat to our self-esteem and positive sense of identity. Try to recall the experience when your boss, your chairperson, coordinator critique your work, no, and gave you all the negative feedback. How did that make you feel? According to David Carlos, there should be a shift in paradigm from teachers delivering comments to what learners do feedback requests. So the premise is that if students develop a feedback literacy, they will ask for feedback instead of you giving the feedback all the time. So if teachers have a feedback literacy, the teacher will be able to design a task that includes uptake. So for example, his example is that this is the homework, and you can tell me, or you can check now which ones which ones you want me to focus on. No? So for example, this is the reading or a critique. Teacher, I want you to focus on, please check, no, the critiquing part. No? Feedback literacy also means relational sensitivities, meaning you know this particular student, or this particular student is very sensitive. So how are you going to give feedback to this student? You know that this is a good student, an honor student, but how are you going to say that this student got the lowest score? No? You also manage practicalities. So do you need to give 10 assignments, no? But you will not be able to give feedback. And teacher feedback literacy also means developing your students literacy, feedback literacy. What is this? No? So a student who has feedback literacy appreciate feedback. Oh, I understand this feedback. This will help me improve my work. I know how to make judgments. No? A student of mine, a mentee, just finished defending his thesis. So making judgments is making you is a student is able to make a judgment that I need to focus on this first and then this and this. No? And then managing affect. After the defense, he said, Miss, what did the panel say? Did I feel? A student with feedback literacy will be able to deal with anxiety, with fear, with sadness, and taking action. No? This is according to Carles and Bout 2018. Dr. Carles says feedback seeking and feedback literacy. Feedback literate learners are they are proactive in eliciting from peers and teachers and continuing dialogue as needed. So it's a paradigm shift, no, regarding feedback. Dr. Carlos also said that we need to design activities where students can request timely feedback, like a sheet where they can check, no, please give me feedback on organization, introduction, and design activities where students can generate feedback, like give feedback to each other. Okay, so design for use of previous feedback. You can ask like, learners complete the prompt, previous feedback that I have used, so that they will remember I used the feedback to improve my pre-reading or scanning or skimming. No, so there. Okay, so I have a few slides left. May I ask Teacher Maribel, what are your maybe one key takeaway from the webinar, from the second part of this webinar?
Okay. The giving feedbacks. I learned that we have two. Okay, the mindset. What do we call this one? The growth mindset and then the fixed mindset. I learned that the negative suggestions or feedbacks are under the fixed mindset. And I learned a lot from this one, wherein even I give the wrong answer on this, but I learned a lot on this fixed mindset and then growth mindset. Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Teacher Maribel. So let me recap. The teacher feedback can help students towards the growth mindset progression. Now remember, so stage 1 to 4. Feedback anchored on the neuroplasticity of the brain can support student progress and motivation. They can coach students through question prompts like the Coach Monster Coach. The power of yet in feedback helps students that they can still improve their work. And feedback literacy of teachers and students is the secret sauce of feedback. So we need a paradigm shift. How can we use feedback to promote a growth mindset? So thank you, Dr. Carlo, for this. Provide positive feedback on the strategies. No, very specific. Foster growth mindset by rewarding improvement rather than results. So let's focus on improvement. Feedback on the effort and persistence behind a good result rather than attributing it to innate qualities like you are smart, you are a good reader. We need to learn the language, recasting negative feedback as developmental, not yet. No? It keeps everyone's brain in toward state. In a toward state, people are more likely to view feedback as an opportunity to grow and improve and shift the focus to getting better rather than being good. No, the goal is to be better. All right, for your reflection, may I ask Teacher Lalaine? Teacher Lalaine, based on this second half of the webinar, what will you continue doing, stop doing, and start doing? Teacher Lalaine.
Okay. Can you hear me, ma'am?
I can.
Yes. Okay. From this webinar, from your talk, the things that I'm going to start, stop, and continue doing first would be start doing is provide specific feedback that would promote growth mindset. Yes, I do provide feedback but not in a way that would promote growth mindset. So I would start doing that, and then continue doing is I would still see the positive side of my students. Since being optimistic is crucial in teaching. We have to accept or we have to learn that every child is special. They have something special in them that we just have to bring out. And the last one, the thing that I would stop doing is the opposite. Stop saying negative. And there will always be problems along the way. But then again, just like the video states, and the power of yet. There will always be time for the students to bloom and to learn that specific competency and skills. That
Thank
would
you
be
so
all.
much. Thank you so much, Teacher Lalea, no, for your answers. All right. So this is my invitation to you. That I don't Dati Roy says that the pandemic is a portal or a gateway. So we have a choice. No, do we want to bring our old ideas, our old baggage, or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world. And let me end with this quote with a growth mindset. You can, no, you can, and you will. And let me leave with these blessings that may you live a life of ease. May you reimagine new ways of connecting with your students through feedback. May you rewire your brain to balance well-being and productivity. May you be safe, strong, and healthy. May you and your students succeed. And may you rediscover your why so you can champion a growth mindset. All right. For the assignment for the asynchronous session, please read the article, no, very interesting article of Truax, the one I shared with you. You are going to get this slide and just click this one. It will lead you to the YouTube video on strategies to help struggling Filipino readers. And your output is a one-page paper, writing an email to your colleagues to share your key takeaways in terms of what you can start doing and can stop doing. All right, I will stop sharing. And thank you so much, no, for participating. And to those in watching this through YouTube, I hope that you will have a happy weekend.
Thank you, Mom.
O, diba? We ended with such a high note to our training today. Well, hindi pala siya end. That lecture had a very high note. We all believe in the positivity of feedback and believe in the power of yet. All right, so we move on to our question and answer section where our teacher participants in the call can raise some questions. So teacher participants, if you have any questions or if there's some feedback you want to give, just click down on your raise hand button and I'll call you. I think we have time for 2 questions. Any takers? Any takers, teacher participants? So habang nag-aantay tayo, thank you Dr. Magno and Dr. Plata. Ang saya ng ating lecture today. So we really believe in the power of feedback as a tool for learners to internalize what their lessons are. So mukhang we don't have any questions from our teacher participants. How about from the live chat? Let's check with the secretariat if we have questions from the live chat. Okay, parang wala pa. Let's give another 30 seconds. Mukhang ang dami nilang natutunan. Sige, habang
nag-aantay yata.
Ha?
Gutom na sila.
Gutom na ba? Ako na lang, may question ako, Dr. Plata. Meron ba kayong experience na personal na nakita nyo na feel nyo yung power of yet na in effect in the classroom in your assessment experience?
Okay. So that's a very good question. No, you mean as a teacher, I've seen the
Yes.
power of yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm teaching now a graduate class and I'm teaching an undergrad class. And when I give them feedback online and I give them good job on the analysis of the problem and the interdisciplinary solution. So that's the first part. But I suggest that to improve your paper, do the following, no, 1, 2, 3, like that, no. So sometimes it helps that there is no grade. Because once they see their grade, they feel heartbroken already. So that's an example of how I've seen the power of yet by telling them that they can still improve their paper. Yeah.
Thank you. So talilin siya talaga dun sa section na diniscuss ni Dr. Magno that when you give feedback, there's some specific actionable items. Okay. So, dumating na yung mga questions to the panel. Either Dr. Magno or Dr. Plata can answer. These strategies are these strategies possible for online classes? How about for modular distance learning? So I guess yung yung immediate feedback, diba? Pag distance learning hindi nabibigay. So that's where this question is coming from.
Dr. Magno?
All right. First, let's look at how feedback is given in remote learning for online versus offline. Of course, for printed module, when you have your SLM and when students submit to you their work, the feedback will be returned to the learners once you return the work to them after you have checked it, and then the learners will receive it during the time that they have to pick up the work back. Of course, this is one of the limitations when your student goes through pure printed module where they have to wait and receive the feedback. Nevertheless, the lag is only in terms of the time, but the most important is looking at the result of the feedback, which is revised and improved performance of the students. But for online, all of the feedback that was provided by Dr. Plata and the focus that I have provided are all possible online. And there are many ways on where you can actually provide the feedback. One is through a discussion board. In a discussion board, you can form a group chat, show one sample performance of students, show your feedback in that particular sample work. Other students would post their work, provide your feedback following the different strategies as well through a discussion board. Another is during your synchronous session, you can actually ask questions, make students do tasks in your synchronous session, and then you can immediately apply feedback verbally because you are live during your session. Another is through your learning management system that when your students submit the work and upload their work, you can immediately type in your feedback in the Google Classroom for that particular work. So yeah, there are many strategies on how you can do the feedback online. But the most important part is that the students take notes and read the feedback. And sometimes this is the difficult part. They look at it, they go through it, they need to process that and read that thoroughly. Yun yung ano. And sometimes if this is written in English, they would look at it and they would not understand. So make your feedback something that is clear and something that they will understand. Yeah, sometimes it's helpful, no, if it's in a Word document, and then you highlight that specific part, and then you put comment. Use the comment option in Word, and then the feedback is there on that specific line, so that it points out to that part that they need to revise. Yes, Dr. Plata, go ahead.
Thank you for the tips. I just want to share that just recently, I learned that it's helpful for me and for my well-being if I have a list of comments that I can give. So parang I have in Canvas kasi there is a like a database, not database, but feedback, a collection of feedback. No? So because if online or remote or modules, you can type the comments. So for example, strengths, no, and then you just type. And then I'm sure you will see the same strengths in other papers. So just copy, print it, copy, and paste it. And then sign it. No, kasi I'm a very practical person at tamad ako magsulat. Sobra ang pangit ko magsulat. So, just recently ko lang yan natutunan. That's why I'm sharing with you because that made my life so much easier.
Dr.
Parang
Plata,
imbes na ano.
yeah, in iPhone 13, you can simply talk and then it immediately types in whatever you say. And then you can copy and then send that to...
Eka, pwede ba yan sa iPad?
I don't know, but in iPhone 13, you can do that. Even when commenting in Facebook, you can just say it.
App? Anong app?
And then, no, anywhere. Even in
Okay.
Facebook, when you press on comment, you just say it and then it's automatically typed.
Grabe,
Even in
hindi ako
Facebook.
yan.
Yeah, for iPhone 13.
Ay, ano yan.
I love it.
Google Documents. So you can type anything in Google Docs and you can say it and it will type it. Merong ganong function.
Even in Google Docs?
Yes.
Anywhere. Basta,
yeah,
basta
you don't have to pay.
Yeah. Even
You
if
don't have to pay.
Yeah, I tried it with iPhone 11 Pro. Doesn't work. I think it's a feature of the 13.
Thank you. I think that's connected. Yung sinabi mo, Dr. Magno, is connected to one of the other questions from our live chat is how do parents get involved? So is there really such a high need for parents to be involved in the feedback, especially subject matter? What if they're not experts? But how do they encourage that?
Okay, I think teacher Divalin, what's her name, the one here, mentioned that at the beginning, Divalin, mentioned that at the beginning of the school year, part of the parents' orientation is to clarify their roles and responsibilities as home learning partners. If they understand what their role and responsibilities are, and it's listed down and they sign a particular contract, part of that role and responsibility is for them to give feedback. And they attend orientations and sessions on how to properly give feedback, how to use the criteria, how to say the feedback. And those strategies given by Dr. Plata, there should be some practice of the parents doing that one. And I think we have served some divisions like the division of Las Piñas, Pasay, and Bulacan, where the teachers are taught on how to orient the parents on how to facilitate feedback as part of parents' orientation. And there are even some success stories where the parents attend once a week session for 30 minutes every day with the teacher, and then the teacher is teaching them how to give feedback and how to teach some of the lessons. And yeah, it makes sense if you it works sometimes if you empower the parents in terms of clarifying their roles.
About you, Dr. Plata?
During the last session, the participants were saying that we need to train parents on growth mindset. There was a student, a teacher, he said that one student who was very, very bright had mental health problems because of the pressure from parents. So I think we need to train the parents as well.
It's true. What the last question I'm gonna get from the live chat is a question on handling 150 students or more. So one tip was that you can copy paste. You have a bank of comments and then you just get. How about meron pa ba kayong ibang tips?
Yeah. One is you can actually collect all of the works and then put all of the common errors together. Let's say most of the common errors are on subject-verb agreement. Most of the common errors is on organization of the paper. Put all of the common errors together so that you'll have a category of feedback. And then when you present this in class, you say, one of the common errors I found is this, and this is what and this is what you need to do. Another that I have observed is majority are this, and this is what you need to do. You can categorize them so that feedback would not be one-on-one, and it's general for everybody. And however, when you have seen that one student work really has a lot of improvements to do, that's the time that you can do one-on-one with that student.
Totoo yan eh. It's for your sanity din as a teacher kung ganun karami. All right. So I think we have a question from Miss Marites in the chat, in the not chat, the call. Call natin si Miss Marites.
Okay po, as an English teacher, it's really hard for us to motivate our students to have a growth mindset.
It's choppy.
Most of the time, they are afraid.
I didn't get
Okay,
that well because it was a bit choppy.
Okay po, so as an English teacher, it's really difficult for us to motivate our students to have a lot of mindset because most of the time they have this mindset where they're very much afraid to use the language. Just like in class, you will ask them a question and then you will ask, pwede pong Tagalog?
Dr. Plata, I couldn't really hear you, so you
May I answer
answered.
that question? Yeah. My mentee just finished her thesis on translanguaging. And so I also learned from what is translanguaging. Translanguaging is a pedagogical tool that teachers can use. It's a resource. Students can use it as well. That you can use any language that will help students learn and for you to facilitate as well. So the pure English is dead. That's what I learned. And so if they want to speak in Ilocano, as long as you understand it, in Filipino, it's a way for them to participate. But I also found in the study that there are like assessment of learning that should not be in mixed language. So for example, the presentation should be pure English, the written output should be in English, but discussion they can use. So translanguaging is one of the options.
Yeah, because sometimes there are some aspects wherein it's not really the syntax and the grammar that we are after. What we are after sometimes would be the expression, would be the content. And I guess intelligibility comes in as long as you understand what the student actually means. Then I guess this is one of the aspects that you can focus on.
Thank you. Thank you again for that. I think Teacher Divlin also has a question or comment.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Here's the situation. Actually, sir, I just want to solicit opinion regarding our current situation right now in a modular setting. Kasi since there are a lot of students who are non-readers as of the moment, we have actually made some innovation. We have submitted them to participate in a Brigada Pagbasa, focusing on beginning reading remediation, so that the students would be able to at least improve in their current performance. My question is, if the student has made a lot of improvement when it comes to to reading, say for example from say for example phonics, then the student at the end of the remediation was able to read at least CVC or the 4-letter words. So there is a lot of improvement from the time that he participated before he participated the remediation to until he finished the program. Yet he's still not able to read the way that the grade 7 should read. My question is it all right to give a passing grade to this student and allow him to be promoted to the next level?
Mm. Uh, First and foremost is you look at the learning competency. Let's say your subject is science, okay? And then the learning competency, for example, is to explain the water cycle. Of course, the learner could not read, and there's going to be difficulty if the learner will have to write the explanation. But if the learner will have other means of expressing how he or she explains the water cycle, let's say this learner will verbally explain the water cycle. So feedback assess that verbal explanation, and that can be considered as targeting your learning competency. So you see, there are some as long as they hit on the learning competencies that would not require some reading skills, then it is okay in that particular scenario to pass the student as long as they are able to meet the learning competency. I guess Dr. Plata would be able to address this one because she's the expert in language. Okay, so I think my take on here is that if the learners, for example, have already reached blending CBC, I think next step is to proceed with the next reading skill like word recognition and then fluency later on. Dr. Plata, your take on?
Thank you so much. First, we are the strategy, for teaching reading, for teaching adolescents, how to read. It should be different from our approach in teaching preschool students. Now, that's what I learned from another mentee writing a paper on why we failed the PISA, a comparison of the DepEd and then the PISA. So let's think of the strategy that I shared with you was not to start with letters, but to start with text with a lot of pictures, such as an infographic. The second one, I think the main question is about should we pass the student? Personally, I think that once we have done everything, but the student cannot understand, because if they cannot read, they cannot pass science, they cannot pass math, they cannot pass the other subjects. How can they pass those subjects if they don't know how to read? So my answer to that question is that if you think that they will not be able to cope because they cannot understand, then for me, they should not get a passing grade. But in their portfolio, we need to indicate there na these are your strengths. In the report card, these are your strengths. These are the things that you can do. And during the break, vacation, these are the things that you need to do so that you can cope with the assignment. So that let's just drop or fail the student without any help.
Yeah, I think Dr. Plata, it goes back again to our question that di ba dapat yung basic reading skill na yan, everyone should finish at least kindergarten until grade 1 as readers. Bakit nakatungtong iyan ng grade 2? Bakit tinungtong yan ng grade 3 at umabot ng grade 7 na non-reader? Bakit yan ipinasa ng mga teacher na naandun sa primary at tinungtong na so it just reflects the lack of accountability on what happened in the lower grades. And if reading intervention is really effective in the lower grades, that should have been solved in the lower grades. However, it's a reality that there are really students going into grade 7 who are non-readers. And this is something that we'll have to think about, because what is going to be at risk here is the failure on specific subjects that would require a lot of complex higher forms of discourse like reading comprehension. Considering that it is already a reality that there are grade 7 who are non-readers, there should be some pathways and programs that we need to do for these non-readers that are still in grade 7, which will not affect the grades on specific subject. Ano ngayon yung programa or intervention na pwedeng gawain nung school mo? So balik yung tanong ngayon sa iyo yan, Miss, ang pangalan nito? Divelyn. Yeah.
Actually, sir, actually, right now, we already have this Brigada Pagbasa project. Actually, na-observe ko po siya 3 years ago, and the number of these non-readers is actually increasing. So we started this project. Right now, yung mga identified po namin na non-readers ay may mga tutors na sila, tigi-isa, 1:1. Yung tutors na nag-a-attend sa kanila is coming from the barangay, dun sa kung saan silang barangay. Tapos yung tutor nila, taga dun din man. Tapos doon sila sa reading facility ng barangay. Doon sila nag-tutor one-on-one. Then since ang curriculum natin po is for junior high school, and then the way yung grading system po natin is yung kumbaga nagbe-base kami sa score sa module. Yung bata, when we invited to read, pinabasa namin siya, di hindi po nakakapagbasa. But yung module na nire-release namin, pagbalik may sagot.
Yun nga. Kaya dapat the program is teaching, you have a separate program teaching them how to read. However, the program is not taking into account how they will perform in the different subject area. Dapat seamless yung programa given their reading capability. So, ibig sabihin, there should be some forms of adjustment that needs to be given to the other subjects, considering that they were identified as non-readers, and that should not hinder passing or failure in the other subjects, and that needs to be accounted for in the program as well. The way what is happening here, that's why you are having a dilemma, is that your reading intervention program is separate with the performance from other subject area. The program is isolate. It is not seamless with the approach on how you treat grading in the other subject. So you see what I mean now? Kaya ka nagkakaroon ng dilemma na ipapass mo ba yan o if-fail mo yan, hindi niya mabasa yung mga higher order discourse sa ibang subject because the program is only solving the reading and not seamless with the other subject. You get what I mean? Yeah. So this is something that you'll have to talk with the school head, your district supervisor.
Thank you. I think that is, hindi ko alam kung kahapon ko narinig or somewhere, na this kind of, when children come back with modules na nakasagot na, but hindi sila sumagot, it's tied with morals and conduct. So, aside from the learning competencies, you also have, not personality, character building in the module. So, matututunan mo sa bahay.
May mechanism kasi yan on monitoring the performance of the learners. When they submit to you the modules, you can have a follow-up question to the learners. You can have parallel set of questions given the previous exercises so that you can check kung pareho or consistent yung magiging answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Our conversation today is really rich. I think we've gone over time already. Let's end the session with one last positive comment or feedback or request from our live chat. That is, sana may workshop tayo sa pag-record ng formative assessment at pag-grade ng recorded reading assessment to practice proper etiquettes in grading. And then another comment said that the organizers and the speakers of the program has given a very interactive and meaningful experience to the module. So again, thank you. Any last words, Dr. Plata and Dr. Magno?
Yeah. So
Do you have any last words?
Yeah, I think we're doing all of these effort. You're attending this PD, you are doing all of these workshops, you submit all of these requirements because in the end, our major concern is really to improve on student performance. So at the end of the day, you will say that you got tired, your time is consumed on this one, but you are all doing this for the love of your students. And if you love your students towards the end of the day, you want them all to be performing. You want all of them to become independent readers. Yeah, you want all of them to be competent because later on in the future, you want to develop successful Filipinos.
How about you, Dr. Plata?
Thank you for that, Dr. Magno. This is the end in my university. This is the week when we are grading papers. and giving feedback, asking students to rewrite and revise, I ask myself, do I still want to do it? Bigyan ko na lang sila ng grade, no? But because I want to practice what I preach, I still gave them a chance to revise and improve their paper. So that's extra work for us, but as a growth mindset champions, my invitation to you, is to join, to become a growth mindset champion, and let's teach the strategies to our colleagues, to the parents, and the students as well. Join the community. There's a community growth mindset PH champions, and then let's continue the conversation.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. That was a very meaningful session, and I'm sure our teachers also felt that the topic was very relatable to them, and I'm sure our YouTube viewers also feel that way. So thank you very much. And there you have it. We now have concluded our synchronous session on Module 1C Reading. We would like to thank our resource speakers for sharing their knowledge and time. We also want to thank our teacher participants for today for actively participating. Thank you very much. Any comments or email suggestions, you can send via the assessment PD email or comment in the live chat. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Okay, bye-bye po.
Pwede na pong mag-leave.
Thank you, sir. Bye.